Okay. Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, February 9th, and you are joining us for the Litchfield Elementary School District Governing Board regular meeting. This meeting is officially called to order. Our first piece of business is going to be the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you will stand with me. Let's see. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it
stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I was a little off there. I'm sorry, I was talking too fast. Thank you, guys. All right, we are going to jump right in. Last month was our first month in our conscious discipline exercises, and we're going to continue this month with our board member, Jeremy Honak, in the meeting message. Jeremy, take it away.
Okay, hang on. I'm already here, almost. So my message is a quote from George Orwell, and rather than say it, well, I'll read it and show it. Well, the further a society drifts from truth, the more it will hate those who speak it.
We're spoken 20-inch.
And so anyway, the message is there's a lot of division, and truth isn't always something that's really coming out of the media and the culture. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it. The next, we move on to our relaxation activity, which we might need before this meeting. So I am going to invite Melissa and a very special guest to lead us through that activity.
Okay, so since this is my month for the breathing thing, I thought I would go to my expert breather who has been doing this conscious discipline breathing thing for longer than I have. So I asked my daughter, who really, really loves doing this technique, to come and share her favorite breathing activity with everyone. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Rory Zaidama. I'm in Corte Sierra, 3rd grade, and I am 9 years old. I'm going to do some star breathing with you.
What does STAR stand for?
STAR stands for smile, take a deep breath, relax, and breathe out.
And you want to do that how many times?
And I want to do this 3 times.
Okay. So, ready? Go. Say it.
Okay. Smile, take a deep breath, relax, and breathe out.
Okay.
Smile, take a deep breath, relax, and breathe out. Smile, take a deep breath, relax, and breathe out. Okay, I'm gonna go now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. What an awesome example of, again, what our kids are learning in school every single day. And I'm so glad that we're able to take a little piece of that and share that with you over our board meeting. It's been a crazy day for me, I will admit, and just that little bit of relaxation and breathing helped me get myself centered for, some very important issues moving forward. So thank you from Melissa for sharing that with us. Before we move on to the rest of our agenda, I wanted to take a moment of silence. Our district has lost 2 very important people to us, not only as a school district, but as a community family. So I want to take a moment of silence for both Peter Kovacs and David Schwake right now. So if you'll just bow your head for just a moment. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And for all of those that knew those 2 gentlemen, our hearts are with you and wishing you well as you grieve those losses. Okay, if you're following along on our agenda, we are on item 3A, our recognitions and celebrations with Ms. Shelley Hornback.
Thank you, President Clymer, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning. It's no secret that this global pandemic is likely the most significant crisis that we as educators will face in our lifetime. And now more than ever, we are committed to maintaining as many rituals as possible. So our celebrations are intentional and strategic. They drive staff satisfaction, they strengthen relationships, and they bring a sense of comfort, especially at a time when there are so many unknowns. So tonight we have a number of celebrations and points of pride for our A-rated district. One important ritual that would not be deterred by COVID was our annual spelling bee. So thank you to Mr. Scott Emery, the instructional coach at Verado Elementary School. He pivoted in a global pandemic and found a way to make the spelling bee happen this year. This is Mr. Emery's Teacher Leader Project, and he always does a fantastic job. So please join me in celebrating the 4 winners of our district-wide spelling bee. We've got a 6th grader from Western Sky named Ashley Queck, and a 7th grader from L. Thomas Heck Middle School, Johanna McNulty, and 2 8th graders from Western Sky Middle School, Quinn Queck and Allison Rovat. Yes, you heard right, that was 2 Quecks and 3 Wildcats. It was almost a Wildcat sweep in there. So congratulations to our spelling bee winners, and thank you to Mr. Emery. We've also got a major celebration, and it's just a wonderful story. So this came to us through James Heck, and James Heck is the son of Dr. Thomas Heck, our retired superintendent. A friend of James Heck contacted him and said that this friend would like to contribute to James Heck's charity of choice. And James said, "How about my dad's school?" And a couple of days later, we had a check for $100,000. So thank you very much to the Foster's Riders organization for this very generous gift. Dr. Heck has advised that the gift be used to promote pride within our Pride family at L. Thomas Heck Middle School. Principal Casillas is working with Dr. Heck and Superintendent Gunning to create a committee of students and staff, and they are going to focus on campus beautification and creating enrichment opportunities for students. So tonight we celebrate the partnerships that made this very generous gift happen. And I guarantee that you'll be hearing more about this as Principal Casillas's committee moves forward. So thank you so much for that. We've got 2 other celebrations tonight. As President Clymer referenced previously, Litchfield School District has been devastated in the last 2 days because of the loss 2 days apart of 2 very special people in our Litchfield family and in our community. We heard of the death of Pete Kovatz, and then just a couple days later, the passing of David Schwake. These are 2 people who are beyond special to us. They have deep roots across our district. They're beloved not only by staff and students and families, but by our stakeholders and other community leaders around the Southwest Valley and even state. So I'd love to tell you a little bit about Peter Kovatz, who joined us in 2004 as a kindergarten teacher at Dreaming Summit Elementary School. He then moved over to Verado Elementary School and became a leading voice in the very strong superstar culture that is Verado Elementary School. He's a beloved leader. He went on to become an instructional coach. He was the coordinator of community education and student wellness. He was most recently our district behavior coach, and professionally best known as the world's greatest cheerleader for conscious discipline, because Pete was all in. He was all about living and breathing life into the conscious discipline culture of our district. He brought joy everywhere. And you can view his memorial services on the website for Thompson Funeral Chapel. And you'll see some really special words from some of his best friends and favorite colleagues. You'll hear them share comments that he was so authentic, so joyful, totally hilarious, all in with his work, just no holds barred when it would come to what's best for kids and helping children and adults become their best selves. He was vulnerable and real and so much fun, and very, very special to many people here. So it's a huge professional loss for us because of the wisdom and training and excellence that he brought to his work. And a huge personal loss for so many people who love him dearly. We thank the many people who have reached out to support us in Pete's passing. And we encourage you on behalf of the family to contribute in Pete's name to the Litchfield School District Foundation. If you would like to make a memorial gift, all of those funds will be used to promote Pete's passion, which is conscious discipline. So thank you to everyone who joins us in wishing well to Pete's family. And our hashtag on social has been Shine Like Pete, because he truly is the brightest star that we love so very much. I'd also like to make a few comments, please, about Mr. David Schwake, who retired a couple of years ago after 24 years of service with Litchfield School District. At one point, he was the director of transportation, but he really was known as our food services director because he ensured that no child would go hungry. In fact, we heard many stories as well that he also ensured that no duck would go hungry at the Litchfield Park Pond. So I'm sure you've been reading about Mr. Schwake in the newspaper. He is a beloved community hero. We call him our hero because in 2017, he was named a national food service hero by the School Nutrition Association. I remember a couple of years ago, a young, lovely journalist came out to highlight his excellent work. And she, like all of us, just fell in love with him. And she was so charmed and impressed and inspired by his fierce and tireless commitment. And she just said, "Oh, I want him to be my grandpa." And we all kind of felt that way about Schwake because he was very, very special, so extremely committed. He had partnerships all over the place. He could make a phone call or a text, often in the middle of the night, to make things happen. We are so grateful for the work that he contributed to Litchfield School District and many of the organizations that we care about, including the Southwest Valley Chamber, the Agua Fria Food Bank, and of course, Kiwanis of Litchfield Park, who is one of our strongest partners. So I want to just make sure that we remember that every time, and it was many times, that Schwake was in front of our governing board, he took the very humble opportunity to thank the board for supporting his work in the district and in the community. He felt that strongly, and he never forgot to say that. He was also so proud of his clean kitchens and the hardworking food services crew. Time and time again, repeatedly, without interruption for decades, our kitchens would get A listings in their health inspections, and he would celebrate every single one because it was quite a feat. So of course, he promoted locally sourced farm to table offerings in all of our kitchens, and he really was our hero in just so many ways. So please keep the Schwake family and the Kovats family in your heart. Join us in wishing them well. Indeed, their legacy will be remembered by all of us and our community for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley, very much. Very well said. Okay, lots of great celebrations also. What some fantastic news. I think the spelling bee is one of my favorite events of all time. Just as a quick side note, I remember showing up my very first year, second year as a governing board member, and they said I could be a judge for the spelling bee. And I thought, oh, well, I just see if they spelled the word correctly. And they gave me the bell job. I guess the lower man on the totem pole has to do the bell job. So when the kid's coming up and the hands are sweating and they're scared to death and they come to the microphone with everyone watching them and they misspell the word, it was my job to ding that bell loud and proud and to tell them they got it wrong. So Mr. Emery, I'm not sure if I'll ever forgive you for that, but I will be back next year to judge for sure. I can't wait. Thank you for that hard work and making that happen. So congratulations to those students. Okay, moving on, we are at item 3B, if you're following along, our year-end audit report presentation. So I will invite the folks from Clifton Larson Allen LLP to give us our discussion. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you. So let me share my screen. Sorry, give me 1 second.
That's okay. Take your time.
Okay. Okay, can you all see that?
We can.
All right, great. So we did the audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. And so I'm just going to run through these slides here that hopefully you have in front of you. So these are the reports that we issued for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on each one of these. But we've got the governance communication, the annual financial report, the single audit report, and then the uniform system of financial records, which is the USFR compliance questionnaire. Just to give you a little idea of the work that we perform. So we did preliminary field work. We normally break up the audit into 2 segments. One is where we do some of the preliminary field work, where we basically do a lot of our control testing, get an understanding of the controls that are in place, any changes within the organization during the year. And then we also do an assessment of the single audit programs. These are the programs where you receive federal funds. And based on how much was spent on those federal funds in any given year, they're subject to testing. And so we'll also make a determination on that and do some of our testing during that time period. So obviously with COVID, it was a little bit different this year, but fortunately, CLA has been transitioning to doing a lot more work remotely. So it was a pretty easy transition this year, where we basically did 1 week of planning and offsite field work. And then we were on site, I say 1 week, but it was really only a couple days that we were on site in August to do some of our wrap up for that preliminary testing. And then our final field work was about 1 to 2 weeks off site. So we had staff in the office that basically the district management had uploaded all of the financial information that we had requested, and we performed a lot of our testing off site. And then we were supposed to be on site, but we ended up finishing the audit off-site completely and wrapped up the audit in January and issued the reports in January that you have in front of you. So the first one is the governance communication, which is really just what I'm communicating here today is really just the audit process. But within that letter, you'll see that in the financial statements, there are some significant estimates. And we need to disclose those so that you're aware that those are estimates. And some of those are the estimated useful lives of capital assets, the unfunded pension and OPEB liability, which is the other post-employment benefits, the program revenue allocation and compensated absences. And the reason that we want to make sure that we disclose that is because we do test those estimates that are going in there, but obviously those are subject to change, but they are estimates that go into the financial statements. We had no difficulties that we encountered as part of the audit. There was one uncorrected misstatement, and what that is sometimes, and actually oftentimes, probably every single audit, we identify adjustments that might be required in the financial statements. And if they're not material to the financial statements, we don't make adjustments for those because it doesn't affect the users of the financial statements. And really, this was actually an uncorrected misstatement from the previous year, and this is just a reversal of that. So really, it's not something that occurred during the current year, but was more of a prior year item. No material audit adjustments, no disagreements with management, and we obtained representation from management that all the information that was provided was accurate. And then no management consultation with other independent accountants. And what that means is if there was any type of disagreement or an accounting issue that maybe we didn't agree with, that they may, if there was any type of consultation, we would disclose that in this letter. So the three other reports, the annual financial report, so we gave an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. And what that means is that the financial statements are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. A couple of notable things within the financial statements. There was about a $5.1 million decrease in outstanding general obligation bonds, and that was just a result of the regularly scheduled principal and interest payments on that outstanding debt. No new debt was issued during the year. About a $39.5 million general fund balance, which is about a $2.1 million increase over the prior year. So this is, when I talk about the general fund, this is referring to the general fund reported in the financial statements, which does combine, because of some governmental accounting standards board implementation, includes some other funds, not just Fund 001 or the M&O fund, which you're used to seeing the general fund. And then the single audit report. We had no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the government auditing standards report, or the GASB report. And that's basically if we had any type of material weaknesses or significant deficiencies related to the financial statements, we would disclose those. And then the second report, the one that says UGG, and sometimes it is UGG, but is the uniform guidance, uniform grant guidance, which is your federal programs. And we issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on that, and we noted no matters of non-compliance or control deficiencies related to the federal programs. And then the last one is the Uniform System of Financial Records. It's the compliance questionnaire, and we had no compliance findings that we reported related to that. So just real quickly, just an overview of each one of the reports. So we give an opinion, we audit the basic financial statement. So these are all of the major funds that are identified within the district. And then there's certain funds that don't meet the criteria to be considered major funds. So you'll see a column in there that says aggregate remaining fund information. So those are all the non-major funds. So we give an opinion on each one of those. And then we disclaim an opinion on the required supplementary information, which would be the management discussion and analysis. And then there's 10 years worth of data related to the pension and the other post-employment benefits. That's required supplementary information. And then the statistical section, which is basically required by the bondholders. And that's why they're included in there. But it has various statistical information related to the debt for those bonds. But when I say we disclaim an opinion, it basically just means we don't give an opinion on that. We do read that information, and we compare it to what is in the basic financial statements just to determine that it is accurate for disclosure, but we don't give an opinion. And then the audit itself is a risk-based approach. And so what that means is that it doesn't mean that we don't audit certain areas. What it means is that every organization has some level of risk. And so we identify procedures in order to perform additional procedures in some of those areas that might be of higher risk. So the two areas of higher risk that we identify was management override of controls and revenue recognition. Oftentimes when you hear risk, it sounds like a bad thing, but every organization has risk. And we always approach the audit in a way that we're going to address where the highest risk areas are. So we performed additional procedures in those areas. And as I mentioned, we had an unmodified or a clean opinion. The single audit report, there's two reports in there. The first one is the government auditing standards report. We don't issue an opinion on that. All we're doing is we're reporting on internal controls related to the financial statements. So if we had any findings, those would be reported as either a material weakness or significant deficiency, neither of which we had. A significant deficiency is a finding or deficiency that we identified that we felt is important enough to bring to the attention of the board. Versus a material weakness is something where either we felt like the control had such a deficiency that it could cause a material misstatement of the financial statements, or it in fact caused a material misstatement that we had to correct as part of the audit. But again, we did not report either one of those deficiencies. The second report is our report on the compliance with federal expenditures. And so we do provide an opinion on compliance, and we also provide an in relation to opinion on the schedule of federal expenditures. So what that means is that the schedule of federal expenditures, which are all of the federal grants and the total expenditure spent for those on each individual grant, we're saying that they're fairly stated in relation to the basic financial statements that we audited. And then similar to the previous report, we don't give an opinion on controls, but if we had any findings related to compliance or controls over compliance, we would report those in the Uniform Grant Guidance Report. So the major programs that we looked at for this fiscal year for June 30th, 2020 were the Title I program and the Special Education Cluster. Those two programs combined gave us about 47% coverage of your total federal expenditures for the year. Again, we issued a clean opinion with no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies over compliance. And then finally, we've got the Uniform System of Financial Records. So again, we don't give an opinion on this. This is basically just a 40-page yes or no report. It's required by the Auditor General. It's based on the Arizona Revised Statutes. And so we have to perform procedures, select samples in order to test compliance with those requirements. And we had no findings that we reported during the year, which is exceptional. Usually we have at least, even at a school district that's performing really well, we normally have at least one or two, maybe up to five. So to have no findings at all, that's exceptional. And that has been submitted. It was submitted electronically to the Auditor General, which I believe you have a copy of that as well in front of you. And then the last couple of slides are just more informational. These are some upcoming GASB pronouncements, which are the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. You'll see older dates on here, but all of these dates have been pushed back 1 year because of the pandemic. So the one that's most immediate that's going to be coming up for this next fiscal year is the fiduciary activities. So we'll have to get with management and talk about how those will be reported in the financial statements. And then coming up after that will be the lease, which is a new standard for how leases will be reported in the financial statements. And then these last two probably don't really pertain to you, but these are some of the ones that are coming up in the near future. So that's really the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but before I do that, I really want to thank Wendy and the management team for all their assistance. Very responsive to all of our questions that we have, and very timely in providing all the information that we requested to our secure portal, which made it successful to be able to finish up the audit remotely. So I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for all of the information. I will echo also, before I open the floor for questions, we also think Wendy is a gem, and her entire staff and is amazing, and we're never going to let her retire. So she may be 80 and still working at the school district. She sets a very high bar. So thank you for highlighting her. We try to do that often. So thank you, Wendy, to you and your team for always stepping up and doing everything, despite everything else going on in the world of COVID and our school finances, to make sure that you had everything that you needed. So I will open the floor to any board members if there are any questions. Wow, you might just be off the hook. We even have a CPA on our board, and she is remaining quiet. So you must have done a phenomenal job. Thank you very much for your time for joining us this evening. We appreciate your hard work.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving right along. Item 3C, we are moving on to the presentation of the COVID-19 update. We will have Superintendent Gunning, and I believe Brian Owen as well is joining us.
President Clymer, members of the governing board, we wanted to provide our monthly COVID update for you. just to kind of update you on all of our information, including our survey data information. And that is where Brian will join me soon. So first wanted to just kind of share with you the current metrics as of February 4th. We are excited that the numbers are improving, but of course we would hope and wish that the numbers would improve even faster. So we continue to ask our community as well as all of our staff to follow all the safety protocols and to mask up. Next slide. This is our current dashboard from last week, so that you can still see that we are still seeing some of the impact. Last week we had 11 current active cases, and so we still continue to have people quarantine or isolate due to COVID. Want to mention that the isolations and the quarantines do not change even with the vaccine. So that's a very important point, as well as all of the safety protocol still remains intact and will remain the same even with the vaccine until we have further guidance from the CDC and the health departments. Next slide. Our on-site learning and support services continue to grow. We have 812 in the K-8 participating, 157 preschoolers, 281 students receiving special ed services, and 124 students receiving developmental preschool services. Next slide. With food services, we still are offering our free meals for any child age 18 and under. We have 6 schools and 13 bus stops. And of course, we offer the free meals daily at our on-site learning locations. Technology, we've completed our internet upgrade from 1 gigabyte to 5, which is very exciting. We received all the data center hardware required for the upgrade, and the wide area network is now at 10 gigabytes at the data center, and all school sites have at least a 1 gigabyte pipe to our data center. That was like a tongue twister. We have distributed over 1,100 Chromebooks from our CARES funding and anonymous donors. We've received and plan to distribute. The distribution is being developed and dependent on when we resume to in-person learning. So one of the things that we'll be doing is, if we do return to in-person, we'll be kind of swapping and bringing computers back and re-imaging them and preparing for assessments in the future. We have 7 hotspots available for students in need, and 2,900 LESD devices on loan, 343 devices gifted to our students by community partners, and 180 devices pledged by our community partners, which we're anticipating those arriving in April. Next slide. With transportation, we still have 22 buses running for special education routes, which is 22 of our student transporters and monitors. We have a van running for special ed, 2 buses running a general ed route to help support those students in need for on-site learning, 3 buses running for meal deliveries, and we still have 13 student transporter positions available and 7 monitor positions available. And Brian, I will turn it over to you to go over our survey data.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Superintendent. So, Madam President, members of the board, we administered 3 surveys to just see what the level of comfort is to return to school in person. We surveyed the families, we surveyed the staff, and we surveyed our substitutes. So what we'd like to do is go through each of them. There's a lot of information here, as we received a total of more than 7,000 records of data across the 3 surveys. So what I'm going to do is just read a whole bunch of numbers and percentages, and then please feel free to stop me at any time if we want to talk about, okay, what does that really mean? And how do these surveys all relate to each other? So we just want to start with the parent survey. This is just an overall summary. There were more than 6,100 responses. Of those, 77% of the respondents were responding on behalf of 5-day in-person students, and then 23% hybrid students. That is slightly overstated in terms of hybrid numbers, but there's could be a couple of different reasons for that. But it's pretty close to what's represented by the community. Just under 50% wanted to return as soon as possible. And in the response selection, that's return as soon as possible, regardless of the county benchmarks. And then an additional 23% were a little more concerned with the benchmarks and wanted no red, all yellow. And overall, 62% return to in-person is the top priority for the students that they were responding on behalf of. Next, Stevie, thank you, sir. So we also collected some more information about the students that the families were responding on behalf of. We collected what the model was, and then we collected the grade level. So of those, this is what the first bullet is, of those that responded on behalf of students in K2 grade band, 85% of those respondents replied 5-day in-person learning model. That means 15% were hybrid. And then you can see that number or percentage decreases as the grade band increases. So just over 3/4 in 3.5 and just under 70% in 6.8. Approximately 2/3 responded to in-person as soon as possible. That's regardless of county benchmarks in each grade band. So regardless of K2, 3.5, or 6.8, it was right about 66% in all three. And then an additional 20% were also responded when all three were yellow. And then of those that responded, their student was 5-day in person, 75% responded returning to school was the student's top priority. So these are that's the majority of the community and the majority of the respondents. Those were the 5-day model respondents. So the hybrid model respondents, these responses look a little bit different. 78% of these families would send their student to school if there was only one red or all three were yellow. So that means 22% responded regardless of county benchmarks. We can see here these families are significantly more concerned about the benchmarks. And then here approximately 25% of the K2 and just under 30% of 3.8 responded that students returning to school was the top priority. So those are the parent responses.
Brian,
Yes.
can I interrupt with a question, please?
Yes.
Okay, so when I look at the supporting documentation that we got as well, and we see where that on the 2 slides previous, where 49% of the parent respondents said as soon as possible, in that same pool, there is 14% that says other. Do we have any idea what those folks were thinking, or I feel like that's really kind of throwing off our numbers here?
Yeah, well, and that was, I believe, supposed to be an open-ended response question that just didn't quite transfer into that. So nobody was allowed to type anything in. So we really didn't get any information on what other meant on this particular survey.
Okay, so would it be more representative to ignore the other, so delete that other from the population, and then what would the percentage of as soon as possible parents be?
Well, we could do that. The only drawback to that is that 14% did not select one of the other 3 options. And so even though it would increase the percent that said as soon as possible, I don't think that would be an accurate reflection of how they responded, but we could certainly do that. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, and it would increase the other 2 also if we just eliminated it, so all the percentages would go up. I feel like that is a little bit flawed, but I understand the information that we have. So I understand your response. We can move forward.
Thank you. I can definitely put that together and we can look at it.
Thanks.
Okay. So moving on to the staff survey, this is just overall summary, 881 total responses. 32 were certified and reported they were 5-day in-person staff members, and 7% of the total responses reported hybrid. 62% of all of the 881 responses reported they've either received or will receive the vaccine for the virus. The reason I put this in is because there were several open-ended questions on the staff survey, and the vaccine, and actually on the substitute survey as well, we'll see, the vaccine seemed to come up and be mentioned quite a few times. So I wanted the community to see the vaccination information about what the staff is reporting. And overall, 58% are comfortable with the district in conjunction with Maricopa County Health Department making case-by-case district decisions due to COVID-19 cases. And in this question, I'm not sure if anyone on the board took the survey, but in this question, we had examples such as student by student quarantine, teacher by teacher quarantine, classroom by classroom, grade level by grade level, or even school by school kinds of quarantine cases.
Brian, I'm sorry, before you go on to this next slide, can you go back, explain to me again, I'm sorry, I didn't understand, the second bullet point there that says 32% certified 5 days, 7% certified hybrid. Can you just run through really quickly how those numbers, how those are part of the total responses?
Yes, so there were several different, what we called employment status types that the respondents could select. About 46% of all the respondents selected classified. And so 32% of the total 881 selected that they were certified 5-day in-person model staff members. And then 7% selected they were certified hybrid in person.
Okay, so the remaining would be either classified or potentially departmental employees or coming from another area. These are just the ones that are actually in certified members in the campuses.
Yeah, so here, let me just, hold on, I have it right here. These are all the choices. They had the certified 5-day certified staff hybrid, certified staff on-site learning, or classified staff. So they could have selected one of those 4.
Okay.
And I mean, I definitely think that what was intended for each of the 4, I don't know that everybody knew exactly what to choose, because you have some of the less defined positions that aren't associated with the homeroom or grade level content area, like behavior coaches or instructional coaches that are certified, but they don't necessarily fit cleanly into one of those categories. So I could definitely see combinations of things that.
Yeah, and I think we're getting the information that we need here. Certainly there's going to be positions that probably fall over, into 2 of those categories or fit there. I just wanted to make sure I understood how those 2 numbers, but no, you answered my question. Please continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. Next, Stevie, please. So then what we wanted to do was look at this by grade band. One of the reasons to do this is to see if we brought groups of students back in a staggered format, what would be our priority groups to bring back, and what could we bring back maybe at a later time, later in a week or next week. So of the respondents, 88% of the K2 respondents selected that they were 5-day in person, and this is only certified staff. So this is either certified or hybrid. 88% certified, 12% hybrid in K2, 78-22 in 3.5, 70-30 in 6.8, and that really mirrors the families that responded on behalf of the students in the homes in terms of grade bands and model type. Nearly 70% of the K8 respondents, so these are just the respondents that selected a grade level in one of those 9 categories. In the grade that best fits you question, there were actually 14 different choices for the grade level. 9 of them were a grade level. Others were positions that aren't assigned to one grade level, like interventionists, for example, or instructional support that may help out in different grade levels. So of those that assigned to a grade level, 70% said they have received or will receive. And then you can see just under 30%, and as a grade band goes up, it goes down to 20%, responded they are ready to have all students return to in-person learning as soon as possible. And that's regardless of county benchmarks. And we have a couple more grade band findings here. This was the majority of the responses in the grade band categories. These are students return to in-person learning when the county benchmarks show no red. So this is any combination of yellows and greens. There was one response choice in this particular question on the staff survey that said all 3 green, which was actually a very low percentage. But we 40% to just over 50% responded no red on the county benchmarks. And then of the 5-day in-person respondents, so this is only that category of certified staff, 5-day, approximately 70% of K5, and this is why I included this, because I thought this was a significant finding, and 44% of 6-8 staff prefer students return at 5-day education setting. So when students return, they prefer students return in a 5-day fashion rather than hybrid. Then we'll move on to substitutes. We had received, at the time that this data was pulled, we received a total of 114 responses. There were 9 of the 114 that said they do not plan to sub this year, but 26% said as soon as possible, 32% after receiving the vaccine. If they are going out to receive the doses of vaccine, that would be about 61 substitutes that would be comfortable coming back, and then just under a quarter when all benchmarks are yellow. And then we have, I think that's 8 total subs said they would sub online only, not in person. And then if you could go to next, Stevie. I wanted to see those who would not sub in person, or they said they would not sub, what was the reason for it? And the majority of them said because they want to protect themselves against the virus. And then an additional 12.5%, so working on 90% of that group, is they found other employment, is how they responded.
Ryan, can you go back just one slide before we go to the options here? I just want to understand this. So of our guest teachers here, we're saying 32% said they are comfortable returning after they have received a COVID-19 vaccine. So that 32% could actually increase that 26% as soon as possible, because there's several people that have already had the vaccine. So I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying we're concluding that when they say they're receiving the vaccine, they mean they're coming back as soon as possible. It was not on the benchmarks or anything else. It was purely just the vaccine alone.
Correct. Yes. They could choose one of those 5 choices. And they said they would be comfortable after they received the vaccine. So that's close to 60% of the respondents.
Yeah.
Would be as soon as possible or after.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, Madam President, members of the governing board, I think what we'll do for the options is we'll bring this PowerPoint back when we get to item 7, when we talk about the reopening. But any other questions with the updated information before we?
Anybody have any questions on all the other information presented? Okay, Jody, I agree. I think we'll leave this part until we get to the bottom. So we'll just, all we have left is our consent agenda. And then I think it's important we will listen to all of our public requests to speak. Mrs. Hornback is going to read those for us. And then we'll resume this in-person learning discussion when we get to item 7A in just a few minutes. So thank you very much for that update, both Brian and Jody. We appreciate it. Moving on to item 4A, this is our acknowledgement of public requests to speak. As I mentioned, Shelley Hornback will be reading for us. We have a 30-minute time limit on this, and people have the opportunity to email in. Ms. Hornback is going to read them. I think we have a dozen responses this evening. She will read them in the order they were received, and we will get through, I think we will be able to get through all of them, but we will have a 30-minute time limit. So Shelley, thank you for being our reader this evening. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Clymer, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning. Public comment number 1 comes from Nicole Wolf, a teacher at Verado Heritage Elementary School. She writes the following: I'm writing to ask the governing board to put safety first and follow the metrics just like was originally planned and committed to our staff. According to the district survey results, the majority of staff want to follow the metrics, and that is the safest option. We are currently in a hotspot in our community during a deadly global pandemic. The metrics are all red. We have lost LESD staff members. We have lost family members and we have lost community members to COVID-19. Many have wished well our school family as they battled through COVID-19, cared for someone with COVID-19, or lost someone to COVID-19. The mitigation strategies work well when community spread is low, which is not the current climate. Please consider a fourth option to stay virtual until metrics are yellow, as was the case in the fall. Public comment number 2 comes from Crystal Borges, a teacher at Belen Soto Elementary School. Thank you for putting the safety of everyone in the forefront of your mind while still balancing the needs of our community. I know that Superintendent Gunning is going to present options for full return to school as early as February 22nd. I know the community is putting a lot of pressure on you to open face-to-face learning as soon as possible. I miss my students, I do, and want to do so many things with them, especially for music, that I cannot do while online. However, I still want us to open safely. All of our metrics are in the red. I would feel much better and more comfortable if we were at least in the yellow for all categories, as I am sure many of my staff and teacher colleagues feel similarly. We have many mitigating procedures at the school, but how can we stay safe if there are families and community members who do not follow them as well? Are the ones that are pressuring you to most, it says, are the ones who are pressuring you the most following the CDC guidelines? Or are they not doing their part to help us get back to face-to-face schooling by having friend and family gatherings with no masks? Many of the studies that do say it would be okay to meet in person do so with the caveat that community spread is not substantial. I know the board and Superintendent Gunning have been kind and gracious and practically almost to the point of begging in every PR release for our community to do their part in lowering the spread. With how high our metrics are, enough of the community has not. It makes my heart drop and I feel relieved we are virtual when I hear yet another story of, quote, blank in my family is sick and getting tested, or quote, we are having a birthday party. Is everyone going to wear a mask? No, my friends are staying safe. I feel like it would be more of a flux for students, teachers, parents if we opened and then had to close classrooms and grade levels on a case-by-case basis, whether due to quarantining or staff shortages for other reasons. How much scrambling did the parents have to do when a nearby sister district had to shut down an entire grade level and send them home for 10 days? So before changing the utmost care you have taken care of staff, teachers, and students thus far, and making me proud to have joined this school family, please consider if those loudest voices clamoring for an immediate return have also done their part. Thank you very much. Public comment number 3 comes from Khalees Brown, a parent. I have written to the board and superintendent many times. I have attended the meetings. I have been home every day since March of last year, supporting all 4 of my children in their education and have been helping them navigate this online learning for almost a year. Can I reiterate that again? Almost a year. Our kids have been out of school for far too long. Please, please, I don't know how else to say it. Please open the schools. The CDC deems it safe. Governor Ducey said to open the schools. All teachers and staff have been given priority to get the vaccine and have been able to receive both injections if that is what they choose. There was even a vaccine event specifically for Litchfield and Agua Fria where that took place. They didn't even have to make an appointment, and yet our schools are not open. What more are we waiting for? Again, the director of the CDC deems it safe. He has the most up-to-date information available. He is the expert on this. We have poured so much money into these measures that we have taken. What else are we waiting for? We have all of the safety protocols in place at the schools. Teachers, if they have chosen to, are vaccinated. It is deemed safe. Seriously, what more are we waiting for? I'm so confused. We cannot make it any safer, and there is an online learning option for those who wish to stay home. Please send them back. Open the schools, please. If they have to go into quarantine because of exposure, let's have a plan in place for that. And if that actually becomes a problem, then let's work through it, but please move forward. So now I beg, plead from my heart and soul, please, for the love of everything, please open the schools. Please see that our kids need to be with their peers. Please look at the research of the harmful effects on the development of a child's brain that all-day screen time has. Please do your research on how many kids are now in counseling, on antidepressants, and on suicide watch because their world has been turned upside down. Open them, please. Open the schools. If you are not willing to open the schools, please consider opening Belen Soto. Open, please. I don't know what other words to use, how else to word it, how else to beg. Please open the schools, please. To you members of the governing board, please open the schools. Please make an argument for why these kids should be back in person. Schools should be about the students. You have even said yourself that online learning is not what is best for them, and yet you are fighting to put them back in. Excuse me, it says you are not fighting to put them back in. Please, 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 please open our schools. Allow these students to be together. Please allow them to go back. I don't know how much more to say it, but please open them back up. Governor Ducey has advised parents that if schools do not open up, that we start voting with our feet and take our kids and the money that the district gets for each of them to another school. We moved here for this school district specifically. Please don't make it come to that. Please just open the schools, please. I hope you can hear the desperation I feel as you read this. Please open up the schools, just please. If not all the schools, please open Belen Soto. Public comment number 4 comes from Blanca Uvaria, a parent. I am reaching out to you for help. Online school is not working for us, and it's getting worse each day. My son will not participate as hard as we try to get him to. What are our options? Can we use some of his state funding to go to a private school? All the charter schools that are open in the area have a 100+ waiting list. We are actually considering homeschooling. Tonight, you will make a decision that will affect the families in our district. I ask that you please consider reopening our schools. Thank you very much. Public comment number 5 comes from Laura Bateman. As the 100th day of school has passed and we are now approaching the 1-year mark of distant learning, of course, acknowledging the few weeks of part-time, full-time, in-person learning, I asked this question to myself. What has each family and educator noticed? And I thought that distance learning is not for everyone. And as a parent, I noticed that education is maybe not as important to Litchfield as I thought it was. As an A-rated school district, some families like myself chose Litchfield School District because of its reputation and higher standards than other charter schools, private schools, and other districts. When will Litchfield make a decision that will reflect what is best for our students, our future? Arizona is far behind in education, and not opening will put our children further behind. Since the 100th day of school has passed, and if the decision is not to open in-person learning for the remainder of the school year, and the school is still getting full funding for each student still enrolled at whichever school is in the Litchfield district, where will that money be put to use? And how does the district feel about receiving money for a student possibly not attending Litchfield School District for the remainder of the school year because of in-person learning closure? Thank you very much. Public comment number 6 comes from a teacher at Palm Valley Elementary School. Her name is Heidi Landon. As a very concerned teacher of this district for over 10 years, I'm writing to state my opposition and concern for returning to in-person learning again. This is premature and it is still unsafe. All 3 areas of the metrics are still in red. How in the world can it even be considered safe? We are going to return and have to go back to online learning yet again. Whether the parents think so or not, this is not good for our students. They need stability by remaining online until our metrics are appropriate for us to return, not being juggled back and forth. It is not safe to return yet. I and many other teachers support this opinion. Please make a decision that is safe for both teachers and students. Students will always be there. Quality teachers will not. Thank you very much. Public comment number 7 comes from a staff member at Palm Valley Elementary School. Her name is Lonnie Palladini. I'm writing this email today with heartbreak, frustration, and hopelessness. In 2 months, it will mark a year of isolation, social disconnection, and our rights and freedoms as humans stripped away. While I understand life as we know it, it will never be the same. I continue to lose faith in what will become. For me, my family, my friends, and most importantly, my kids, I have 2 kids ages 9 and 7. Over the last year of quarantine and isolation from friends, family, teachers, and classmates, I have seen a decline in their mental health. My son, who already struggles with anxiety and ADHD, has become increasingly panicked and lonely. My daughter, who is a happy-go-lucky, bubbly friend to all, has started to cry every day. She becomes emotional because she has no friend connections. They are forced to keep distance, can't share, can't play together, can't sit too close to a peer without being punished for not, quote, social distancing. The new world we live in is out of sync. It goes against all that is moral. It seems there is a lack of common sense when it comes to giving and showing human kindness and compassion. While I understand safety is why we have been virtual for so long, enough is enough. At what point do we consider isolation, depression, and suicide a safety risk? I have firsthand felt and witnessed every one of these things and more. It's not right to keep on going this way. Our kids deserve better. It's not just different subjects taught in school. It's also where our kids learn to be good, kind, compassionate to others. They learn how to bond, interact, make friends, lose friends, and solve disagreements. You cannot get any of that, especially the younger grades, virtually. We need to get our kids back in school in person now. I plead this to you, not only as a parent, but as an elementary school employee. Our kids are struggling. Our children only get one childhood. Let's give them their life back. Thank you for taking the time to read my email. Public comment number 8 comes from Jay O'Neill. First off, I want to thank you, the district staff, and especially our teachers for all of the hard work they've done over the past year. It's not been easy. Everyone has had to make difficult decisions and be flexible with an ever-changing pandemic and information that surrounds it. As a public safety professional, I have been working every day since the pandemic began outside of my home. As an organization, my employer has had to make changes to the way that we do business to include taking precautions to protect not only our employees, but our customers. As I said, those changes and precautions have changed over time, but much like teachers, we have a responsibility to our communities and ultimately have to provide the best level of service that we can. With this in mind, as a parent of a child in the district, I urge you to consider returning to in-person learning as quickly as possible. Information and circumstances have changed, and while at one point I supported the changes that the district was making, I now feel that the welfare of our children and their ability to learn is going to be severely impacted if we do not return to an in-person learning format for those who choose. Not only do we have new information about the virus and ways to mitigate its spread, we are also seeing a plateau and even decrease in the amount of cases and hospitalizations in Arizona. Additionally, I know that many employees in the district have received their first and even second vaccinations. Ultimately, the reason that I believe that the time is right to return to in-person learning is because the student support is no longer there. We have been in some sort of distance or hybrid model for nearly 7 months now, minus a couple of weeks at the end of October and early November. Resources and the ability for parents to juggle their children's learning along with other responsibilities have diminished, And while the district has been trying to fill the gaps, the chasm at this point is just too great to fill without returning to in-person learning. Parents have been forced to return to work and lives have somewhat normalized as businesses continue to make accommodations for in-person services. Healthcare workers, retail workers, restaurant workers, and a host of other services are available in person, and those organizations have figured out a way to mitigate the risks. We cannot go nearly an entire year in a virtual mode. Not only will our children's learning be irreparably damaged, but so will their social and emotional needs with the waning support that they are receiving. I do understand that some teachers may oppose this, but I also believe that we can impose sufficient mitigation strategies and that exposures can be handled at a classroom, grade, and school level. Also, I believe that there is enough opportunity within the district to accommodate teachers that have a need to remain socially distanced by allowing for movement between grade levels and even outside of the teacher's home school. I do not take COVID and its impact lightly, and I'm not naive enough to think that there aren't a lot of factors to consider in this decision. But I would ask you to consider the ongoing and long-lasting impact that the current learning model is having on our children and our community. And I respectfully ask you to vote to return to an in-person learning model as quickly as possible. Public comment number 9 comes from Arnie Mota. I am reaching out to you for help. Online school is not working for my daughter, and it is getting worse each day. Her education is suffering greatly. At this point, she is failing all of her classes. She needs in-person instruction. It's become extremely challenging. We are not certified teachers. What are our options? Is there any funding to hire tutors or other schooling options available for our daughter? Here, education, it should read her education is important, and we have done what we can as parents. Tonight, you will make a decision that will continue to affect adversely or positively the families in our district. I ask you to please consider reopening our schools for the well-being of our children's education. Public comment number 10 comes from Kevin and Ali Velez. I am disappointed to see that only 5-day in-person is being offered for return to in-person student learning, and hybrid is not listed as a consideration. I was asked to make my decision on student learning 9 months ago, and my feelings and intentions for the best academic environment for my children has changed. I am on a wait list to transition out of hybrid to full 5-day in-person. But the reason there is a wait list is because so many other parents are in my situation. There are 12 weeks of school left, and there has to be a way for my children to finish at least the 4th quarter full-time in person. Other districts around the state have made this work, and I'm confident that the Litchfield board and staff can make this work as well. I think I have been extremely patient up to this point, but after 1 year, yes, we are approaching 1 year, distance learning has to come to an end. Parents who do not want their kids in school have the DLA option. Litchfield should have 2 options, in person or online. Teachers were prioritized for vaccinations for this specific reason. Litchfield has the right mitigation steps in place. You can make this work. At least give it a try. There will never be the perfect time, it seems. We just have to try and see where it goes. I will be extremely disappointed and frustrated if no attempt is made. Public comment number 11 out of 12 comes from a reading specialist at Verado Heritage Elementary School. Her name is Jen Mock. I wanted to take this time to write you and wish you well as you go into tonight's board meeting. I will support you as a teacher in our district and a parent of 2 Litchfield Middle School children. I am sure you are getting many emails from families, employees, and community stakeholders. So I wanted my voice to be heard as well. We need to get our students back on campus. I have been coming to school every day while my 2 boys 6th and 8th grade tackle online at home. I am 2 minutes away and I'm able to run home at lunch and support them when they need it. I am able to work with 3 on-site groups in interventions and 4 online, and I have seen more growth with my in-person students than the students that are online due to the fact that some online friends don't even come to their intervention group. It's very difficult to give the Acadians reading assessment virtually to 2nd through 5th graders and tell them to try and point to the screen to follow along with the story. Luckily, I was able to test K1 in person with safety protocols in place. Our data shows that we need to get these students back to reading books in front of them. I am confident in all of the safety and cleaning protocols we have in place on our campus for us to be able to return to school, which is the best place for our students to learn. I am sure you have researched the data. The CDC/science supports schools are not super spreader environments. Children have a low potential to spread the virus. Schools can and should reopen regardless of teachers being vaccinated. Suicide rates are up among 18 and younger, and the list goes on and on. I know that you will make the best decision for our community, even if it needs to be a school-by-school decision. That will be at least a step in the right direction. My 6th grader chose the word hope for his word for 2021. And when I asked him why, he said, because, quote, I hope I can go back to school this year. So please give us hope. Our families and students deserve to come to school. Thank you for taking the time to read my email. I wish you well. Lastly, public comment number 12 comes from Candy Reyes, LDEA President, and the LDEA Executive Board. The Litchfield District Education Association is asking that the governing board consider staying virtual until the staff has had adequate time to be vaccinated, as well as using the metrics as a return guide to ensure that the mitigation strategies work. Our neighbor, Awafria Union High School District, is also pushing their date to March 31st to ensure that their staff have time to vaccinate. As you know, many of our staff members are scheduled for their 2nd dose after the proposed February 22nd date. The CDC states that the COVID-19 vaccine, quote, is a safer way to help build protection, end quote, from this deadly, highly infectious disease. We need to give our staff time to build a safer immunity before sending them into lunchrooms and classrooms with children who cannot receive the vaccine and can spread the virus. According to the CDC, it takes a few weeks for the body to build immunity, and people can contract the virus while they are waiting for the vaccine to build up immunity. They also repeatedly state that no one can predict how their body will react if they get COVID-19. Our district has lost employees to COVID. Some of us have lost family, friends, and community members. These wounds are from a year ago to last week. The CDC reminds us that this disease is serious to everyone, even if you are young, healthy, or if you've had COVID before. This is a serious, deadly disease. According to the CDC, all humans, big or small, and even vaccinated, can spread COVID-19. So, in order for those mitigation measures to be most effective, the community spread should be low. According to the metrics, we are still in all red. According to our district's latest survey, the majority of certified and classified staff agree that we should use the metrics as a guide to return to in-person teaching, measuring a low community spread before returning to campus to ensure safety as a priority. This was the governing board's original goal and should remain the most important goal. In closing, the LDEA asks that you stay in virtual learning until the community spread is lowered as guided by the metrics, and that all staff have the opportunity to be vaccinated and build a stronger immunity. Thank you very much. This ends our public comments.
Thank you, Shelley. We appreciate hearing that. I know that was a lot for you to have to read all of those, but thank you also to everyone who sent those in as well. We appreciate your feedback. We are going to get on to the rest of our COVID-19 conversation, but first we are going to review our consent agenda items. So if anyone would like to pull anything off the consent agenda, now is the time, or I will entertain a motion to approve as presented.
I don't want to pull anything off, but can I make a comment really quick before we move forward possibly about it?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to make sure we point out in our consent agenda that we are going to potentially approve extending the COVID relief for our teachers, the time offs, because I know that was a big issue last month and we weren't able to address it, but now we are. So I just want to make sure our staff knows that we are extending that time for people that are with positive test, so that they know we did talk about it.
Correct. Yes, Melissa, you are referring to item 6U for those following along on the agenda. It's the very last part of our consent agenda, the temporary extension of the COVID-19 paid sick leave. All of that can be found on our board docs as well. Yes, Jeremy.
Yes, I would like that item U to be removed from the consent agenda.
Okay. We will do that. So item 6U to be pulled off. Is there anything else that needs to be removed?
I don't have anything else to be removed, but I do have a comment. I can either say it now, or we can do it in the discussion between and a vote.
Is it in regards to 6U?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then if it's on the consent agenda, you can speak now. I mean, if it's on anything else on the consent agenda, you can speak now.
Okay. I would like to ask Superintendent Gunning to address items 6J and 6L, which are the employment position change with new contract renewal, selections of employment position change with new employment of classified personnel, and how those new hires or job changes are being addressed in light of our equity statement that was adopted at our December meeting, and what the timing of that potentially will be.
Thank you, Board Member Moran. I'd be happy to address that. We wanted to make sure that folks are aware that some of, especially for the certified positions that were hired, those folks were hired prior to the approval of the equity statement. They were hired in one particular status, and now they've received all their credentials. So we're just transferring them over to their new status. So for that piece, as well as some classified staff in relation to transfer or movement within the district, they have moved within based on needs or supports that we needed to do. And we'll always continue to also, we're working on all of the goals for the equity statement in relation to all of the components of the equity statement, as well as for the hiring process and those pieces. Wanted you to know that we did take into account when we looked at for the DLA principal position, that position was posted both internal and external, and had a hiring committee that was put together to fulfill that position.
Great. Thank you very much for that. And also congratulations to our 17th school principal, Ms. Capistro. I'm going to probably pronounce that wrong, but I apologize. Congratulations and welcome to the new team. You're the old team and the new team. So anyway, welcome aboard. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 6U.
I motion to approve the consent agenda minus 6U.
I second that motion.
Okay, we're going to do this individually as we normally do. So I will just go through as you are in the order on my screen for your vote. Kim Moran.
Kimberly Moran, yay.
Melissa Zeidema.
Melissa Zeidema, yay.
Jeremy Honak.
Aye.
Okay. I am yay as well. Motion carries. Okay, now we will address item 6U. We are now on to 5B in terms of our consent agenda. So the temporary extension of COVID-19 paid sick leave. Jeremy, you wanted to pull this off of the agenda. Do you want to start the conversation?
Fine. You know, as much as I sympathize, I think it's kind of enough is enough. And, you know, everybody else out there, police, Walmart workers, everybody's going around as normal. And I think a lot of people in the public, their perception is that teachers have already gotten about 100 days approximately of paid leave, essentially. I know they've worked online, but basically most people don't have that luxury. They've either lost their job or, and so I think at this point, I've gotten my second vaccine. I don't know why. I'm a few days from immunity, supposedly 2 weeks after my second one. I don't know why most teachers wouldn't be in that situation. So I think it's unnecessary. And I don't think it's going to cause a hardship to anyone. And honestly, I think a lot of the public is pretty outraged at somehow feeling like teachers sort of have a prima donna status and are really coddled in a way that the general public isn't. And so I'm just going to vote a nay. I don't really need a lot of discussion about it. That's just my opinion.
Okay, I would like to, well, and I'll invite Superintendent Gunning to jump in as well. I just want to clarify a few things so that we make this a balanced conversation. In that I don't think, or maybe I misunderstood. It seems like what you're saying is that we're just giving additional days to teachers off. When I think, in fact, what we're doing is we're just allowing them, I mean, these are only for people that have a positive COVID test. They would not be in our classrooms anyway. So they are taking the time, whether we approve this or not. They're not allowed back in our classrooms because they have tested positive. All this is doing is offering them a financial bridge to get them back into the classroom because they don't have enough sick days to cover the full COVID quarantine and isolation period. So to me, it's not about how many days they're working. They wouldn't be working anyway. This is really about helping them bridge that financial gap between working and not having enough sick days provided by the district to cover that full quarantine and isolation.
Well, I read it very carefully and I understand it. And I understand there are many, many limitations on it. It's unlikely to be abused. Okay, but I still think it's not really necessary. I don't think teachers are one of the few employees that have not had the kind of hardships that everybody else has. And as taxpayers, why are we giving them a better deal than other people?
Okay, Melissa, Kim, would you like to jump in before we move on?
I would like to jump in. First of all, our teachers have been working this whole time. So I think that's unfair. Personally, I would have had it have more because right now, if we have a teacher that has to stay home because they're being tested and they have COVID symptoms and their test comes back negative, they're not going to get paid for that time unless they had the time to give. So I would actually ask for more, but I understand where we're at. I can be responsible with our budget and realize that this is where we are and this is what we can do. I also think that it's not fair for people to say that people aren't working if they're home. I have a husband who's been working from home this whole time too, and he's working a ton more hours than he was working when he was going into an office because his day starts when he gets up and it ends when he goes to bed. And I think our teachers are doing the same thing. We need to support our staff. We need to make sure that our staff knows that we are going to take care of them if they have a positive test. And that's the only way they're getting this time. So they have to have COVID in order to get this pay. So I think it's a good thing that we're doing.
Kim, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I would agree with Melissa, and I would formulate that I wholeheartedly consider that our teachers have been working every single day, if not more days during this time. Again, to Melissa's point, I always work from home. I've worked from home for 15 years. and run my own business. And where you work from is irrelevant. It's the output that's happening. And these teachers are getting online every single day with their classrooms, leading the lessons, instructing the children. That's their job that we are paying them for. So that is still happening. So if that is public's viewpoint, they are sorely mistaken. When it comes to this particular topic of the COVID-19 paid sick leave, I favor of this because I do think that again, it's only if they have a positive COVID test that they would be even eligible for this particular leave.
Okay, thank you everyone for perspective. I think we're ready to move on. I will entertain a motion. This is item 6U, temporary extension of COVID-19 paid sick leave.
I motion to approve temporary extension of COVID-19 paid sick leave as presented.
I second.
Okay. Kim, your vote?
Kimberly Moran, yay.
Melissa?
Melissa's item, a yay.
Jeremy?
Nay.
Danielle Clymer, yay. Motion carries. All right, moving on to item 7A. This is discussion and possible consideration for return to in-person student learning model. This is Superintendent Gunning, and I think we'll go back to our original COVID update presentation for this.
Yes, thank you, Stevie, for reloading that presentation. Madam President, members of the governing board, we wanted to provide several options to resume to in-person learning. I will go through each step by step because it is a little bit confusing as we kind of look at the different options. Prior to diving into these options, I just want to let everyone know that safety protocols will remain in place as they have been. The vaccines do not change safety protocols, so that will remain in place. And we also, in looking at these considerations of why now, I know I've had some folks ask me why now, and we were looking at the, when we learn additional information, which this has been a learning year, we'd like to take that into consideration as well. The CDC research has continued, and their recent research that just was published at the end of January supports the opening of schools and that they are safe and do not contribute to the community spread, as well as we know our younger students in K-5 are at a lower risk and reduced transmission rates, as well as we consult weekly with Dr. Moran with Healthy Verify, and she feels very confident and comfortable with our mitigation strategies that we could consider the options for reopening along with the vaccine. And education was a part of the 1B group, and that became available on January 11th, that folks had the opportunity to begin obtaining their vaccine. So that was really important. It was, we are very grateful to the state for opening up, of course, in our backyard, the stadium for 24 hours a day for options and opportunities. And then, of course, we were able to work out an education pod with Abrazo and our feeder district, Owafria, as well as Avondale, to offer even additional pieces. We did provide flexibility for staff as well, just so that you know. If they were not able to get an appointment or something after hours, we provided coverage for them to go during the day. So, and then we allowed our classified staff to make up hours if they had to leave during the day, because we wanted to make sure the vaccine was a priority. So let's take a look at some of our options. So if we look at option 1, we would like to consider returning. These are all of our 5-day students. So students and parents who had selected 5-day as their learning model. We'd like K2 to return to 5-day on February 22nd, 3-5 to return 5-day on March 15th, and then 6 through 8, 5-day in an A-B schedule on March 15th, and then transitioning to the 5-day learning model by March 29th. In looking at that option, we were looking at the ability to monitor the operational status and to ensure, because one of our goals is that once we open, we want to try to stay open, and thought that that would give us ample time in doing so. As we know too, that transportation will be a struggle, but it would be a struggle just so that you know, probably for the remainder of the year because of our shortage of student transporters. Option 2 gives the option for K2 to return to 5-day on February 22nd, 3 through 5 to return to 5-day on March 1st, and then 6 through 8 would begin 5-day on March 15th after our return from spring break. Option 3 is K5, 5-day on February 22nd, and then 6 through 8 would return to a 5-day AB schedule on March 1st. So they would return AB and then would transition to the actual 5 days a week on March 22nd. Wanted to gain your input, insight, and any ideas that you may have. We know that there may be options from or different components from each of the options that you may want to look at and consider as well. And or may have even additional ideas. When we were looking at all the different options, we definitely came up with a lot of different scenarios that we could possibly present to you, but these were the ones that we kind of narrowed down for you to consider. I will take any comments or questions or.
Thank you, Jody, very much. Obviously, I know we all have. I've been thinking about this a lot the last couple of weeks, as I know your team has been working really hard behind the scenes to put together something that is operationally sound, that still adheres to all of our safety procedures and protocols, and tries to weave in all of the feedback and all of the ideas and everything that have come not only from our staff and families, but from community members and board members and everyone else. So first and foremost, I just want to say thank you. I know right now it feels like a thankless job, but I know in all of the comments and everything that we have gotten over the last couple of weeks, it does seem very clear that everyone is very thankful for the work the district is doing to try to get kids back to school safely. So I will echo that to you and all of your staff. I would like to start. I've been thinking about the best way to organize this conversation. I know we have a lot of interested teachers and staff and parents and probably students, even community members that are watching us right now, and I want to make best use of all of our time. So what I'd like to do to start this, I know, we have the options, we've seen them all. What I'd like to do is if we can just go around and just sort of take the temperature of the room. Let's see where everybody is sitting, how we are feeling in general about the return and what that looks like in your mind. And then we can go back to the specific options. As Jody mentioned, there's a lot of nuance here. She probably could have put 50 different options up in terms of dates and returns and all of that kind of stuff. So first, I'd like to just walk through where everybody is sitting right now, and then we'll go through the specific options and how we want to give direction back to the administrative staff. So Kim, do you mind starting us off?
I'm happy to start us off. I will say that I am supportive of us deciding on a date in person tonight. I have some ideas on maybe some options outside of the 3 options and what my preference would be when it comes to that. And I wanted to give a little bit of insight as to why I am supportive of us setting a date tonight and what has changed since the last time we had this conversation about opening the schools, which was back in the fall. The primary thing, as Superintendent Gunning mentioned, is the availability of the vaccines. They have been available to teachers and staff since January 12th. Put students back on campus February 22nd. That would be 6 weeks since the first vaccine was available. I understand that the vaccine times may not be the most convenient. However, I was one of those folks that got up very, very early in the morning and went to get it when it was available. And I think that there have been ample opportunities, though we have not had a vaccine necessarily come to your door to deliver it to you. They have been available for teachers and school staff, and were prioritized so that schools could reopen and teachers could be safe when they return to the classroom. The second piece of what has changed since the fall for me personally is we know now that operationally with teachers and subs, as we reviewed earlier, potentially having been vaccinated at this point, we should have less or fewer struggles keep our classrooms led by certified teachers. Some of the other districts in our area are keeping their classrooms open, but they are not being led by teachers, by certified teachers. And for us, or for me personally, that has been a priority for me. And so with the availability of the vaccines and more subs indicating that they would be willing to assist where needed, I'm confident that our operational struggles will be lessened than they were in the fall. The thing for me and final thing is just the overall COVID trends are decreasing instead of increasing. Last time when we opened schools, we were at a steady for quite a while. When we decided to close them, we were definitely on the incline when it came to COVID, and have not seen it really decline until just the last couple of weeks from that point. So I feel that all indicators are pointing the right direction based on vaccines, our operational capacity, and the COVID trends in general, that I would like to see us set some dates tonight.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. Melissa, your comments?
I agree that I like the idea of us setting a date tonight, although I don't like the dates, the first date offered right now. I do agree that we have a vaccine available, and that's great. There was a lot of problems for people in signing up to get the vaccine when it first, like when they opened up the calendar, people had issues with being able to sign up. I myself know that I got my vaccine on the 18th of January and then never got a thing saying I could sign up for the second one, and had to call them. And by the time I was able to get somebody on the phone, which took hours to do, they couldn't schedule me till February 23rd. So I won't have my second one till February 23rd. And I'm not the only person that's in that situation. I think we need to think about the fact that we did have that pod, which is great for our staff, but their second dose isn't till like the 18th, 19th of this month, which is just a couple days before that 22nd date. And the stuff about vaccines says that it needs 7 to 14 days. Jody confirmed to me today that they got the Pfizer vaccine, so that would be more like 7 days, which is good for that. But I just want to make sure that we don't throw out the progress that we've made. And we are seeing these declines in our numbers, which are great. But if we open too soon and before the vaccine is done, like before people have had time to have their vaccine become fully effective, I am concerned that we will have made all this progress for nothing. And I don't want to see our schools have to shut down a grade level, a class, any of it. And I mean, we know we're probably going to see that in some form or another anyways, just because COVID's not going away. But I would want to make sure that we are minimizing that as much as possible.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. We'll go more into detail on dates and things like that in just a moment. Jeremy, your comments.
Yes, I'm off mute. Thank you. Well, I believe that we need to go with option 3 or sooner. Again, I think it's enough is enough. The world has been out there, police, utility workers, everybody pretty much has been going to work. And I haven't noticed that any teachers have stopped eating. So I'm assuming that they go to the grocery store and to Walmart and to wherever else so that they can survive. By the way, going to a grocery store or something like that is infinitely more risky than opening up the school, because a teacher is primarily exposed to however many students they have, the same students day after day. It's not like a continuum of strange people that you don't know where they were. The kids can be have their temperature taken with a little squirted at your forehead thermometer as they walk in the school or walk in the classroom. So there's a lot of protections that are involved, and you know, I'm older, you know, I'm ancient, you know. I'm very cautious. I wear masks all the time. I wear N95 masks that are dirty because I use them for industrial purposes. And I'm not going to stop wearing them even though I'm masked. But I can see that an elderly teacher, if they want to have all the desks moved 15 feet away instead of 6 feet away from them, they can conduct the class just fine like that. I've toured the schools. There's enough room to put the students and have a little extra space if the teacher wants to have a little more distance. I don't think at this point we really have the right to taxpayers and people out there whose lives are going to be ruined. I know many people, they've lost their jobs, and they've lost, worse than that, their businesses. You know, they could probably get another job at some point, but a business that they've put their life into and is poof, gone. It's not like they're going to go start up again. And so, you know, for us to sit and say, well, teachers are somehow the royalty, you know, that have to have this higher standard of safety than the rest of the world has. I don't think we have the right to say that. I honestly don't think we have the right to say that. Certainly, we need to be caring and have common sense. And but right now, I think the harm to the public is far greater than any potential harm to teachers. And again, they can take incredibly careful precautions, such as how the classroom is, or if they want to put up a barricade of glass or whatever they want to do. I'm sure there will be a way to figure those things out. And if maybe some of the older teachers just say, hey, I can't take the risk, I've got comorbidity or whatever, I'm certain that Superintendent Gunning and her staff can figure out ways to accommodate and move some people around to do that. So enough is enough. We did a good job, but now it's time to go on with life, because otherwise, you know, there's going to be something around the corner from here till doomsday. And we gotta, you know, the CDC, there's no reason to do this other than just arrogance on our part. So we need to open them up. Option 3 or sooner, vote on it tonight.
Thank you, Jeremy. I will echo the sentiments, I think, in the collective rooms, right, that we're in. I agree that I think we are ready and prepared to decide on a date, whatever that might be this evening. The two things that I think have helped me make the decision up to this point, and I think Kim and Melissa, you both touched on a part of these, but number one is, can we maintain our safety protocols and our safety measures? I have every confidence that we can do that. I will be honest, we couldn't follow the CDC guidelines 100% when they first came out, right? We can't have everybody 6 feet or more apart. We can't have, you know, some of those things, but we have done every single thing we possibly can to get 99% there. We have gone over and above and have not only spent money and our resources, but have probably overtaxed our facilities and custodial and maintenance crews in trying to do that. So I appreciate all of that work. And I do feel like through Healthy Verify and other people that are constantly monitoring our safety protocols, that there is no other better place or safer place for them to be than we can make it today. So I do think that we are there. The second thing, and probably in the last time we had this conversation, was, can we stabilize our operations? Can we make sure there is a certified teacher or a guest teacher in that classroom when we need it? Can we make sure that through isolation and quarantine, we're maintaining those safety protocols, but also maintaining consistent learning for our kids? And before, I don't think we could confidently say that. I think now, with seeing some of that information, knowing that people are feeling more confident with the vaccine and our guest teachers are slowly willing to maybe come back in larger numbers and support us, I think I'm confident in saying that we are going to hit bumps in the road. We're going to find ourselves jumping over hurdles. But again, I have every confidence that the district will figure it out. And I would ask the parents for their patience and flexibility in things like transportation, in things like you know, food service, or whatever, all of the departments that are going to be affected by this massive change. Everything is not going to be 100% back to normal. Kids are still going to be wearing masks. There's still going to be protocols. All of that stuff is going to happen. So we ask for, you know, just your patience and flexibility as we, you know, sort of dive into the deep end here and bring everybody back and do it in a way that makes sense for the district. Okay, so knowing that we're at least starting there, I guess I will open the conversation. One thing I will ask, just a question. Jody, you mentioned that those options were only available to the 5-day students. I'd like to understand better what the plan is for hybrid students, and I'd like to discuss the option of have them returning at the same time as 5-day, still in the hybrid model, but returning 5-day instead of having them come back at the end of March.
Yes, we had considered, based on the feedback from the surveys from the parents as well as from the staff of the hybrid students, looking at them for a return of possibly K-5 March 15th and 6 through 8 March 22nd. But we could listen to other options or pieces as well.
Okay. All right, so just going back to the comments that I heard this evening to kind of start the conversation, so please feel free to jump in. Jeremy commented that he was leaning towards or preferred option number 3, which I believe was the 22nd start date for K-5, and then the following start date for our middle schoolers. Anyone else have an option, I mean, in terms of, let's kind of break it down into our elementary kids and our middle school kids. It seems like they're being separated in kind of a tiered approach between all of the options. But it seems like across the board, the 22nd is kind of the start date. Melissa, you had some concerns with that. Do you want to voice those so we can kind of decide what that beginning standpoint might look like?
Part of my reason that I think we can set a date is I do see a trajectory based on our numbers right now on the metrics. If you look at our survey results, even though it was a narrow margin, more of our families wanted us to follow the benchmarks in some way versus throw them out. And if you look at the surveys from the teachers, they substantially more wanted us to follow the benchmarks than throw them out. And so I think that we asked for that feedback, so we shouldn't just throw it out. If we pick a date, like I personally would totally support everyone going back after spring break. And I've even talked to Superintendent Gunning about it, in that I would support not having hybrid anymore, even at that point, because then we can have that whole quarter where kids are back in school fully, the full thing. We know that our teachers will have had ample time to have their vaccine, their second vaccine. If there's any reactions, we know that the second vaccine is the one where they're kind of having more of a problem right after for the next few days. That would make sure that they get through that. It gives them the full 7 to 14 days of time to make sure it's fully effective. And then our kids can go back to school and just be ready to learn. And that's a better transition time. It's already a transition time for our kids. So I've talked to Superintendent Gunning about this before, because I think that also covers the fact of where our benchmarks are going. We could potentially see 2 or 3 yellows by that point at the same time.
Kim, your thoughts on spring break?
I'm all in favor of being 100% everyone who wants to be at school coming back from spring break. However, I would differ from Melissa in I think a gradual approach would get us there and would still accomplish the same thing, because in reality, we're not gonna be able to say everyone come back the Monday after spring break, it's gonna go well. Like, the kids still are going to have a learning curve there. And so I would be supportive of a fourth option, I guess, that look like K through 2 on the 22nd. For through 5, I could go away, come back on the 22nd, or come back on March 1st. And for 6 through 8, I would like to see them coming back in the AB schedule on March 1st for 1 week only, so that the kids can learn the social distancing and all the things that they need to learn from a protocol perspective. And again, we can go back that Monday after spring break and have K through 8 ready to go for the last quarter of the year.
Okay.
But I'm open to options.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of on the fourth or combining of those things as well. On most of these options, it seems like having our youngest learners coming back as soon as possible seems to make sense across the board. It seemed like even in the grade bands that was supported. So having the K2 come back and the 3-5 come back later, I am on board and can support that both on the 22nd and March 1st. I think where I differ from the last 2 options given is that the majority of our middle school students are in schools all their own. So I don't understand why we can't start middle school at the same time that we would start any other students. You know, I guess what I'm saying is it's not that they're not affected by the K2, 3, 5 mix. Those middle school students have their own school for the most part, sans 2 of our K8 campuses, which we may be able to deal with separately. So I just question why we would wait to bring them back. If we are bringing students back, why not bring the middle school back at the same time? Or even do a tiered approach. To Kim's point, there's going to be some shifts in how they do things at the middle school level in terms of, you know, the maneuvering in classes and all of that kind of stuff, which is a little bit different. Our 6th graders haven't had the opportunity to have that yet because they've only been in school for a couple of weeks. So maybe even a tiered approach in the middle school as well, but getting them back sooner, or at least on the same time frame as our elementary students makes sense to me, because otherwise those schools are just sitting empty. I mean, the middle schools are just sitting empty. So I would be in favor of moving that along either in the K2 or the 3-5 band rather than waiting all the way until after spring break. Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah, I got the follow up. I think that we need to really consider the mental health issue. And it doesn't mean people are going crazy, but I know a lot of people that really are going crazy. I mean, life is depressing enough with everything going on, and then people are literally going nuts, being unable to even be there for their kids. You know, we were just assuming that they're at home online and there's a parent available, you know, and a lot of cases both parents work. So and you know something, why aren't the parents having a consideration? Why don't we just, first off, I think a phased in thing might help our school open, but other than that, let parents phase in if they want to. We should open the schools, and if some of them say, hey, I feel paranoid about my kids going to school until whatever, you know, then they shouldn't be penalized if they want to continue on with you know, online or whatever they're doing. But at least give the option to the people that are really desperate, and give parents a little credit for saying, you know, that you know, they're gonna, if their child is not feeling good, they're gonna make sure they don't come to school and become super spreaders and stuff like that. But to just sort of sit here and juggle people's lives around at this point, when the CDC, when all the research shows that kids aren't super spreaders, that it is just beyond ridiculous. It is. 95% of the people that get this, they hardly even notice they have it. They have, you know, a sniffle for a day or something like that. You know, this is not the bubonic plague. Yes, nobody wants to get it. Yes, if you're certain people get it, it's serious. And we've had people that have passed away, and I have friends that have passed away. But you know, whether you know, can anybody pinpoint what it was that happened or how they got it? No, we can't. We don't magically know. We've heard wear a mask, don't wear a mask, do this, don't do this, whatever. And all we know is that we do have vaccines that are protecting our teachers, and that kids are very unlikely to have any serious consequence. Very unlikely. You know, they can be run over when they go across the street. Right now, kids are, I know friends and their kids are just running around outside in the neighborhood, you know, and they're playing football and they're doing whatever. They're not bothering to social distance. And by the way, the kids of people that are medical professionals that are working with COVID patients day in, day out, and they're feeling that that's realistic. I mean, and not a big threat. So, you know, I have a lot of medical professionals in my family. It's utterly absurd, in everybody's opinion, closing the schools anymore.
Okay, Jeremy, to follow up on that, Jody, can you give me a little insight, or all of us a little insight in the tiered approach for K2 and 3-5? That seems to be kind of a question whether we bring them back all at the same time in terms of, it seems like there was a couple of different options mentioned that. Can you give us the benefits of why we would do that or not?
So one of the reasons that we felt like that was a great option was, one, they're younger, and we know that gives a little bit more time, and it's imperative, of course, for them to get back. It also helps with having fewer children on campus and making sure operationally we've got it down and we're sitting good as we begin to roll up. So those were the main reasons in looking at that tiered approach. Also kind of gives us a little bit of time for transportation to ramp up from an operational setting component as well. So that's kind of where we were coming from, that piece. Also in our K-8s, just something to kind of think about. I know that always throws kind of like, it's so hard. And I know, Danielle, you kind of brought this up of maybe looking at middle schools versus differently from K-8s or something along those lines, is that our K-8s, the two of them are our two largest campuses. So having a rolled up approach also helps them to kind of make sure all those safety protocols are down, repractice, and procedures in place and intact as they keep rolling up their students.
Yeah, and I know that those are unique places because, again, they have our largest ones. Also, they had the fewest, if any, hybrid students. So the majority, or not all of those students, were 5-day, if I can remember correctly. So yeah, they are a little bit different. And operationally, I don't think us as board members are going to know how to solve every problem on every campus. So that's something that I think we would, I would feel comfortable leaving to the administration to make those determinations. But I think for the other 4 middle schools that we do have, we may be able to handle them a little differently because they don't have the same issues as those campuses. Maybe, they're completely solo and separate. So, okay. So what I'm hearing, at least I'm kind of just trying to take this piece by piece, is that we have maybe 3 board members that are looking at a February 22nd date at a minimum for K2, potentially K5. Another board member who is saying after the 15th, I believe, March 15th, which would be a spring break. And then kind of going back to that rollout schedule, if we did K2, 3-5, and then potentially somehow fitting in the middle schools, whether that would be an A-B schedule to start and then roll into 5-day, or just start completely in 5-day. Can we just break this off into little chunks maybe and do the K2, 3-5 discussion? Can we decide that we are going to go in a tiered fashion, or Jeremy, go ahead.
Can I make a motion that we adopt option 3, which has been presented to us by people that probably know what they're doing?
Yes, you can make that motion. It does not look like we have a second, so we'll continue the conversation. So moving on to that February 22nd date. Can I hear some feedback on starting on the 22nd? We got to narrow this down and figure this out. So if we're not, it doesn't sound like one of these options is going to work for everybody. So we need to start sort of digging in and making some decisions to move it along.
Okay, I will start. I would either K-2 or through 5 starting on the 22nd.
Okay, I'm sorry, I lost you for just a second there, Kim. You're saying you are okay with K-2 starting on the 22nd. I didn't hear the 3-5 part.
Or K-2 starting on the 22nd. I would like to see I would either like to see K-2 starting on the 22nd, and then 3-5 starting on the 22nd or the 1st. I could go with either one of those options. And I would be happy for that because that's the rolled up approach to Superintendent Gunning if she believes that's necessary for us to be successful in this program.
Okay. So potentially the 22nd and the 1st. Jeremy is on the 22nd. Melissa, how are you feeling about this?
I cannot support us having kids go back on the 22nd when the pod that we offered our staff, their shots are going to be on the 18th and 19th for their second one. And that's not giving them the amount of time they need for that to be fully effective. So, I mean, if they all got Pfizer vaccines, then I guess that their shot would be that week. And I could support the next week. That would give them a week at least.
Can I add one thought to that, Melissa? So not that I don't disagree, I do not disagree with you on the effectiveness piece of that. However, I will say that based on the studies, and those studies, but the younger the child, the less likely that they are going to pass along coronavirus. So the first vaccine from Pfizer would make you approximately 52% immune to the virus. And if we start on the 22nd with only the K through 2s, and then we start on the 1st with the 3 through 5, that's when you're getting older into the 8, 9, 10 time frame. And by then, with the Pfizers, they would be fully to the 92 or 96% number there. So just something to consider with that.
Okay. I could also get on board with taking Superintendent Gunning's recommendation of the tiered approach just for operational status and transportation and all of those kind of things to get the younger kids back to our safety protocols and all of that kind of stuff, support the return on the 22nd of K2 and 3-5 on March 1st, separating those just by 1 week.
All right.
Jeremy, go ahead.
I make a motion that we let K through 2 start on February 22nd.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. The motion is K through 2 starting on March 22nd.
Yes, which
Excuse me,
like
February 22nd. I apologize. February 22nd.
February 22nd. Yeah, February 22nd. As it seems like 3 people are for that.
Can I just ask a question? Are we planning on doing this separately, or are we going to try to get a plan together to approve everything at once?
I mean, it was my hope that we would do it together. I think, Jeremy, would you be open to setting that aside? To saying K2 on the 22nd, moving to the next?
Well, the thing is that I think right here, who knows how we're going to go. And if we divide and conquer, it seems like we have pretty much a majority accepts the K through 2. If we just vote on that, then we're done. Then we go talk about K through 5. And we vote on that, and then we've got, I guess, 6 through 8. I don't mean K through 5. I mean K2, February 22nd. It seems like we have a majority for that. Probably close to 1 for the 3 through 5, and then we could move on. So I'm just saying divide and conquer, so we don't go all over the place and spend forever.
Okay. Repeat the motion one more time. I apologize. I just want to make sure I got it. Your motion is to
open the schools for K through 2 on February 22nd.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on that motion before we second it so that I make sure we understand what we're voting on? That's K through 2, 5-day only?
Whatever was in option 3. And that probably would help if we could see those again, the option cards.
Melissa is getting at is are we addressing hybrid? Do we plan to address parents who chose hybrid in this conversation? Is that correct, Melissa?
Yes, that's what I believe that's what she's asking. And just in reference to this, I haven't heard a second yet, so I'm not sure that we're going to continue this motion, but in reference to that, in the option 3, it is not referencing hybrid students from what I understand. If we'd like to have that conversation, I am all in for putting hybrid on the table and putting them at the same time. I think making it more complicated and tearing it out longer just makes it more complicated for everybody to understand who goes back on what day and what time and all of that stuff. So I am in favor of doing that. I don't know if that was part of the original motion or not, although I would ask if we seem to be in somewhat of agreement on the K2 issue, if we can just set it aside, move to 3, 5, 6, 8, and then go and approve it all as one package, I think we might be able to get through those motions a little faster. Jeremy, can I
I'm fine with that, and I think that in combining the hybrid and the 5-day all together in the approval, I don't see any reason to have one be different than the other.
Okay, so we are setting aside K2 for now, and we're moving on 3-5. What's been on the floor is kind of the approach that is in option 2, which is starting on the 22nd for K2, as we just discussed, and moving on to 5-day March 1st for 3-5. So that's just 1 week difference, 1 week rollout to get our youngest learners back as soon as possible, still keeping everybody safe, less kids on campus at a time, giving us some operational stability over the 2 weeks. Can I get some agreement on that March 1st date for 3-5?
I can support.
Jeremy.
Who was that? Who was that supported it? Kim?
That was Kimberly Moran.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Kim. Yeah. Okay. I really think February 22nd should be for 3. It should be for K through 5. But I could be depending on what happens with the rest of this, I could be convinced to go along with that.
With March 1st. Okay, Melissa, March 1st date for you?
I cannot support that.
You cannot support the March 1st date for 3-5?
No, because you're going to put it all together with K through 2 starting on the 22nd, and I can't support something where kids are starting on the 22nd. I don't think that that is the right date for us to have kids going back.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Thank you for the comments. Okay, so it seems that 3 of us are in possible agreement on March 1st. Let's move on to 6-8, just to continue all of this, and then we'll package it all together. The 2 things that have been mentioned on the floor so far is 6-8 in an AB schedule for 1 week, then returning to 5-day the following week. All in AB schedule, everyone in AB schedule, and then coming back to 5-day the following week, starting on March 1st. Actually,
Would go with that.
I'm sorry, I think that's the only thing that's been on the floor.
Yes, and meaning, it would be 1 week of AB schedule, and then there would be spring break, and then the first full week of 5-day would be March 15th.
Correct. So
Again,
AB schedule as it's listed in option 3 here.
well, option 3 says transition to 5-day on March 22nd. I would like to a schedule from 2 weeks to 1 week, because I do not want any of our students to have fewer teacher-led instruction days here than they already had. So less time in an AB schedule for the folks who chose 5-day, optimal to me. I do understand that we might need more students to get the, but I would like to see that AB schedule minimized.
Okay.
I agree with Kim.
Okay, so we may have some something coming together here. It seems like we're kind of a hybrid, no pun intended on that, for between option 2 and option 3. K through 2 starting on February 22nd, 3-5 starting on March 1st, 6-8 starting the week of March 1st in an AB schedule for 1 week. Everyone, obviously in the district, going on spring break the week of March 8th. Everyone K-8 returning on March 15th in a that has chosen 5-day will return in a 5-day model. What I just described will be good for both 5-day students and hybrid students. Hybrid will just be returning in hybrid versus 5-day.
Yes.
Does that seem to capture what we've discussed?
I believe so. It sounds good to me.
Kim?
Yes, that does capture what we discussed. I know this was not one of the options, so I would like to ask Superintendent Gunning if this is a feasible plan from an operating standpoint, transportation, date-wise.
Yeah, absolutely, Kim, agreed. So Jody, it looks like we're kind of changing up option 3 just a little bit. It seems like it's the closest to option 3, separating that K-5 and then just pulling the 6-8 up a week for 5 days. So what is your recommendation on that? Do you think that operationally that's still a sound plan?
I think that we could do it but knowing that we're probably going to have turnaround routes on buses. Yeah. There's just going to have to be turnaround because especially with middle school, a lot of our youngers, the parents have been great about driving, but with the olders, they tend to ride the bus. And so that'd be just something that we'd have to just plan for. The only other thing to just kind of keep in the back of your mind too is just remembering those K-8s. I know you kind of brought it up before. That I don't know if I could have flexibility to go back to those 2 campuses just to kind of talk through. They don't have hybrid. They only have 5-day at those campuses. So that would be a little bit different. And then just again, kind of just clarifying for all of the folks out there listening, the people who chose hybrid would continue as hybrid. We're not doing away with hybrid at this time. It would only be as if we couldn't support it based on, people changing their option. We also do have space for online too, just in case somebody wanted to switch their student to online. But so that would be the only struggle for me.
Okay. And I think it is worth noting, like you said, Jody, transportation is going to be difficult for us. And I think it's something we need to be really honest and transparent about. And I know our transportation director is going to move heaven and earth to try and get every single kid where they need to be. But we're going to have to ask for patience and flexibility. And if you have any ability to drive your child or carpool or get them there in a safe way, please do so and reserve those dedicated spots for kids that do not have any transportation to school. We would greatly appreciate it. This is unfortunately one of those things that we've really struggled with COVID to maintain that operational status. And we just don't have the coverage to transport the number of students that we do on a normal basis. We want everyone to be safe and get to school safely, and we will work through those challenges, but I just want to be transparent and say that there will be challenges. We know we'll have to deal with that. Okay, so Melissa, I want to open the floor to you one more time. I know that you are not comfortable with the dates, and I've listed out everything here, and I'm trying to work through any other options that we may have to make this a full consensus. I think outside of the starting date, in terms of starting earlier than you like, do you agree with the rollout strategy and trying to separate out the grades and making that rollout? I know, again, the dates are not great for you, but I think does the rest of it make sense to you? Do you feel like that will work?
I like the rolled out approach. I do think we need to think about Bell and Soto and Heritage because of the fact that they are our biggest campuses. And when you bring back 3 through 5 and 6 through 8 at the same day, I understand we're doing AB, so half won't be there, but that's still a lot of kids on the campus at one time. So that's something to think about. Again, the surveys said that the middle schoolers especially were less comfortable with coming back, which I think is I'm guessing that's another reason that factors into why they were starting later fully, because the parents and the staff were less comfortable. They're bigger, there are more bodies in a classroom, their class sizes are larger, although it's a little harder. But I do like the roll-up approach. And I just think that I should point out that we are sitting here in a virtual meeting right now, again, talking about, because 10 of us can't be in a room right now, but we're going to ask to put 30 kids in a classroom in a couple of weeks. And I think that matters.
I'm happy to meet in person. I'm not sure why this is a Zoom meeting tonight. I think all of us have been vaccinated. At least one, Jeremy mentioned earlier, he's had both. I've had both. Superintendent Gunning has had both. So I'm all for us meeting in person as soon as our next meeting.
Yeah, and I think that we've taken the approach, just to move on from that, taking the approach that we are doing virtual meetings when our students are in virtual learning, and we're doing in-person meetings when our students are in in-person learning. So hopefully we will get back to that before next month, for sure. Okay, so it seems like I will say the option 4, just because we're kind of combining of K2 on February 22nd. 3 through 5 on March 1st, 6 through 8 coming back in an AB schedule on March 1st, returning in a full schedule on March 15th, whether that be 5-day in person or hybrid, whatever you are currently signed up to be in. Seems like that is what is currently on the floor. Jeremy.
I motion that we adopt option number 4 as was just described. K2 February 22nd, 3-5 on March 1st, 6 through 8, AB on March 1st, and 5-day on the 15th of March.
I will second.
Okay. Any questions or discussion?
Just a question that did not mention our hybrid kids. This is only our 5-day kids. So is it still the plan to have all hybrid kids go back to school starting March 15th? If that passes?
Thank you for clarifying. I believe this is 5-day and hybrid simultaneous rollout. Is that correct? Is that, Jeremy, is that what you were, right? So hybrid and 5-day go back in their grade band. So not all hybrid comes back on March 15th. They just start with their grade band. They're not separated. Jeremy, is that?
My understanding was that's what we were discussing, and that we had agreed a while back that for discussion we would combine the two. So that's my motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? Are we ready to vote? Okay. Kim, your vote.
Kimberly Moran, yay.
Melissa.
Sorry, it froze up. Melissa's item on no.
Jeremy.
Jeremy Honak, yay.
Danielle Clymer, I am also yay. Motion carries. Okay. Jody, I know this is not one of the options listed here, so I want to just give you a moment to say, okay, so I guess we're just going to call this option 4. It's a little bit of option 2 and option 3 kind of combined together. Can you just give us a quick overview of sort of the next steps from here? What parents should expect in terms of communication? And I know that, we discussed for the 2 campuses specifically of Bill and Soto and Verado Heritage that they might look a little different. I mean, I encourage you to stay as close to that as you can, but operationally, we trust you to make that decision of what needs to be done on those campuses because they are so different. But can you just give us a very quick overview of what parents should expect in the next couple of days?
So what we would like to do is to be able to plan, we had planned prior to this meeting that we would have communication come out as soon as possible. So we would like communication to our families either Wednesday at the latest Thursday, just because we knew everyone would be waiting on kind of what was transpiring. Depending on how maybe complex the communication might be, we may be communicating more in a general level and having direct communication coming from the principals. But if I can get this all in a succinct way that is easy to understand and to read, then we'll include all of the details with it.
Okay.
So
perfect. So
working on that to hopefully go out. I mean, my the best would be tomorrow, of
Okay.
course, and then worst case it would be Thursday.
Okay, and in terms of follow-up for transportation, obviously now we'll have more kids using the transportation routes. I know we had some surveys that went out in the beginning of the year. Should parents just sort of stay tuned to hear back from the transportation department in terms of next steps for that?
Yes. So yeah, so Tommy will work on that and we'll let them know like if there's schedule change for pickup, drop offs, those kind of things based on possible turnaround buses. And we'll get that information out to our families.
Great, thank you. Jeremy, yes.
I think that parents will be grateful that school is opening, and it just, when we announce that, obviously I think that's what will happen, is just that they're going to need to be understanding and that the world is not perfect, and they're going to need to help with that. I don't think you're going to have hardly anybody complaining, and if they do, oh well.
All right, well, let's move on. Thank you, Jody, for that communication update. Let's move on to item 8A, our Diversity Empowerment Committee update. Megan, we are excited to hear the updates. Thanks for joining us.
Yes. I am reporting today, President Clymer, Governing Board member, Superintendent Gunning, just about where we are in the process. So our Diversity Empowerment Committee has been meeting once a month all year. We have a great crew of staff members, community members, parents that just really work. And the whole goal of that committee was to learn and grow in the area of diverse equity and inclusion so we could look at our district data and see if we have room for growth in any of those areas. So as you know, the very first thing is that the Diversity Empowerment Committee created data-driven goals for LESD. All those were based on our district's data in regards to representation, in regards to achievement, and in regards to discipline. We when board member Moran introduced the equity statement, she also briefly went over the goals with the board at, I believe it was the December board meeting. So here is just a brief description of the first 5 goals that the Diversity Empowerment Committee created. From there, we took those goals as a district and well, what happens with this committee is whatever the committee recommends, I bring back to Superintendent Gunning, and then we develop a plan and she guides us in what she recommends or moving forward with the board, with that group's recommendation or what we need to do next. So what we did with that is the DEC recommended these goals, and we then developed facilitators to flesh out these goals. Because the one thing that the DEC was quite aware of is that, you know, we can create these goals based on data, but the experts need to flesh out, like, what are the strategic steps to get there? So what we did was we identified experts in those areas. So for example, the discipline goal, we got Amanda Acosta, Principal Acosta, and Assistant Principal McQuarrie, and they became the facilitators of this discipline goal. Karen Williams and Luke Jenke took over the achievement goal. Eva Aguila and John Scudder took over the continued learning goal. Dr. Sarah Pearson took over as the facilitator of the curriculum goal. Meredith Noche took 4.3 of the curriculum goal, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then Monica Sanders took on was the facilitator of the 5th goal of diversifying our staff. And what they then did was they created their own committees, and they chose diverse people, diverse stakeholders, and developed these committees to then take the recommendation of the DEC and dive in deeper to determine who should be responsible. What does a realistic timeline look like? What is measures of success? What are strategies that we knowing that we are experts and people on the ground doing this work in this area? So as you can see in step 3, if you scroll down a little bit, Stevie, the members of the team then found their teams, and all those members are listed. And then step 4, I met with those facilitators and we just talked through what the role is. So their role was to take the goal that the DEC recommended and really flesh it out. So from there, they met with their teams, and man, the work they did in their teams was just incredible, because they came back to me and went over, like, we did like little check-ins so they could say, okay, our team is thinking this, here's some questions, here's some ideas, and we just really started fleshing through those goals. Then at the February 9th Admin Council, which was today, they shared their goals with the team, and the team was able to ask any questions. This is still in complete draft form, and that was really, really eye-opening. In fact, I was blown away, because even though I had been progress monitoring with them their goal work, hearing all the goals and their team's recommendations, and even Superintendent Gunning and Gina was saying as well, like, it was just amazing to hear the ideas and the passion and all the well-rounded thoughts that came in from their subgroups, because they involved so many diverse people in creating these. So it was really awesome. So on step 8, the finalized goals will be shared with the governing board in our Friday update this Friday. And then from there, the superintendent cabinet will meet with Brian, because what we need to do from then is develop a district-wide plan to progress monitor the goals quarterly and report out to the governing board and the administrative team, so everybody is well aware of our progress. Brian is the best man to bring on board to help us develop these, because of his just beautiful brain in regards to making sure that we are creating a good system to measure our progress appropriately. And then from there, we will present all the goals and the progress monitoring plan to the governing board at the March board meeting, so that everybody is well aware of the goals and how we are going to progress monitor, and when and what you can expect in those progress monitoring checkpoints throughout the year. So I think that our team, starting with the DEC teams, or starting with the governing board with their equity statement, then the DEC team creating the goals, and then these teams really getting on the ground and getting the work in. I am really, really proud of the progress we've made in a short time. I'm all about going slow and doing the work well, because this work is going to be transformational. We know with our conscious discipline rollout that we do it slow, we do it right, and we get everybody on board with discussions and awareness and professional development and all those things, so that doesn't fall back into traditional change, which could be here today, gone tomorrow. We want this to be transformational change, because our data shows that our children need this. So some of the other things we've been doing in regards to this work right now, as we're developing the goals, is Principal Nallen from Canyon View and his team have trained our administrators in a few different trainings on how to lead with an equity lens, and just really coaching and teaching them. This year is all about exploration, beginning to our own learning, diving in a little deeper in our site equity teams, and just getting our feet wet with this while we set specific goals and ways we can track them. So I'm excited about our progress. I'm excited about where we're going to go from here. And you will see the finalized goals on Friday in your Friday update, and hear specifically more at the March board meeting. And I'm open to answering any questions or hearing any feedback from any of you.
Thank you, Megan, very much. I'll open it up. This was a lot of work and putting this together. So I will save my comments until the end, but Kim, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think this is fantastic, Megan. Thank you for the work that you and the facilitators for each of the goals and all of the subcommittees that are coming up with action plans for the goals are putting into this. I obviously think it's very important work. Can you tell more about the site equity teams and what sort of work and how that kind of fits into the district goal and in these goals as well?
Yes, and that I think is one of the most exciting parts. This year, the site equity teams are literally just it was somebody passionate on their campus, and they created a team, and they've been learning and growing together and exploring. But next year it's going to be a more systematic process. It actually, if you look at 4.3 of the diverse curriculum goal, that's where this is fitting in. So 4.3 says ensure teachers have clarity, knowledge, and agency to start adapting, modifying, or enhancing curriculum to bring cultural awareness and diverse voices and perspectives into curriculum. This is where Meredith Noche was the facilitator, and she really her subgroup was all equity leads. And how we're going to roll this out next year, and it's all laid out in the goal that you'll see Friday, but I'll explain it because I'm excited about it too. It's going to be very similar to our conscious discipline rollout, where our behavior coaches and our advisors met with me and Pete Kovacs every month, and we sharpened their saws in regard to conscious discipline so they could go back and bring mini lessons and different trainings to their staff. We are going to set it up just like that, where monthly our site equity leads will meet with a diversity facilitator and really use data, teach about different things, and make sure they're empowered with new learning every month. And then they'll go back with a task to do with their staff in regards to growing practices, looking at their data closer, how are your data and subgroups looking, and all those different things, just to sharpen the lens. And I think that that's very critical, because 4.1 and 4.2, actually, let's go back. goal number 3 is the continued learning goal. That we are really looking and fleshing out what will all of our training look like at the beginning of the year and mid-year. So everybody in our district has this. But what's going to continue the work, as we noticed and learned through conscious discipline, are those site leads who are being trained at the next level so that they're a little bit farther ahead than their staff. So they're constantly bringing back and pushing their staff to the next level of understanding and knowledge.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. Now, can you just tell me, and you may have said it and I missed it. So it's kind of train, what I would call like a train the trainer, theory. Who is, you said before it was you and Pete were on the conscious discipline. Who are going to be the resident experts on this equity piece that would be teaching, or will we hire third parties for that, or what that look like?
So in regards to what I just talked about, that will not be third party, though. This will be site, our district people. But what we need to talk about once this goal is fleshed out and we see it, and I talked to Superintendent Gunning and our cabinet about is it a stipend? Is it a teacher leader project for that? Or how are we going to structure that? And then it would be open up to members of our district to apply for that and really see and really see who, and an interview process for that. Meredith Noche and I talked deeply about this, and it was very easy for us to go back to people who are leading the work now, but at the same time, as we want to do with other things, we want to open it up so that we might have a diverse pool come out and want to take lead in that. And then they will be provided additional training from outside providers to ensure their practice continues going. Did I answer your question enough?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions, just to follow up on Kim was saying. I think it would be my preference if because Megan, just to your point earlier, this is going to be a slow and methodical approach. I mean, this is impactful change. Not that everything we do doesn't have some kind of impact, but I think this is the gravity of this will last for a very long time. And I'm hesitant to not bring in a third party to really have someone who has that training and knowledge and know-how. The same thing we did with conscious discipline, the same thing we do with other things, very big rollouts that we do. I think our site leads, I think all the people that you've mentioned here are amazing. I know some of them, not all of them. I think they're all exceptional and would be able to train their staff and their peers and their colleagues on that. I love the idea of the teacher leader project and trying to really encourage people to do this both personally and professionally and kind of marry those together. Because I think from what you've told us anyway, that's why conscious discipline has been so impactful, because they found a way not only to do it at school and in their professional life, they've also brought that home with them in their personal life. And I think this will be the same. But I would just encourage you and the team to really think through at the higher level, bringing in a third party that can really tell us what we don't know. I honestly don't think that we are prepared to train each other on things that we're just not there yet. But I think we're on the same page. I think you understand what I'm saying.
For sure. Yes. So in goal number 3, for sure, that continued learning goal, you will see that we are part of that goal is a third party outside person coming in beginning year and mid-year. And then for the goal 4.3, we'll be looking at making sure that facilitator, district facilitator is trained and led by an outside person so that they can then lead the site leads.
Perfect. That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Megan. Opening it up. Jeremy, Melissa, anyone else have any questions for Megan on the goal planning process?
I don't have any questions, but I did want to say that I appreciate how quickly you guys jumped on this to get a plan going and get some goals going so that people can see that we take this serious, that this is something that we're not just making a statement and putting it on a shelf to say, look, we did it, but that we're actually making progress and we are actually going to make changes that the students will be able to see as they are going through our district.
Thank you, Melissa. And I feel that too. I think that shows that we are prioritizing this work. When we see data in our district that any subgroup is not achieving at the level that we think they should, we have to act on it and act on it systematically and quickly. And I believe that that's what we're doing right now in our district.
And I agree, and I think you've done a great job jumping on it. And I'm with Melissa that, you know, I'm kind of astounded that you got all that much done this quickly. So great job.
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate that.
I echo the sentiments as well. Thank you very much. This is great work. I'm looking forward to March. It seems like when we first started this, you know, in earnest a few months back, as we had gotten going, got the ball rolling, it felt very big to me. And so I love the way that you've broken this down and really sort of chopped it into a lot of different pieces, and you've got a lot of people's input. There's a lot of different campuses listed here, district folks, different facilities, different departments. I love that diversity in terms of just where people work and how they work within the district. Their background, their perspective is going to be different. So I think all of this is great, and it'll be nice to see this kind of update and grow every month so we can kind of see that progress. So thank you. Looking forward to it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so we will round out our meeting with our reports, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Gunning for her superintendent's report.
Madam President, members of the governing board, just an update on my reports is that I'd love to share that we have our National Board Association Equity Online Symposium coming up February 10th. March 9th through 10th, I will be participating in a conference of delivering at a national conference with Studer. So super excited about that, as well as I was one of 80 superintendents invited nationally to participate in additional conference in April out of 30 states in our country. So I'm really excited about that national forum. We've had quite a bit of response on our parent surveys, over 2,600, over 2,000 in our middle school student surveys, and around 1,300 in our elementary, which is pretty good, especially with folks being in distance learning. So that's awesome. And then kind of, again, going back to what Shelley had shared earlier tonight, that we definitely have some very large shoes to fill with the loss of David Schwake and Peter Kovatz. David being the advocate for feeding everyone. I mean, just he was like my right arm as a Title I director and supporting our families. And Peter, with all of his supports and knowledge and talents with conscious discipline. So we continue to wish those families well. We're wishing our community well as we move forward in remembering those two amazing individuals.
Thank you, Jody. We will move now on to our individual board reports. Unfortunately, we're not sitting in our normal line, so I'm just going to unfortunately go through my Zoom line here. And Kim, that means you're up first.
Always go first. That's okay. For my board report, I will try to keep this short. I did get my second vaccine dose last week. I'm very grateful for the science opportunity to lead by example. And I'm grateful to all the staff who have made appointments and who have prioritized getting vaccines for the greater good and safety of all of us. I attended the Speak Up, Stand Up, Save a Life virtual conference this past month, which was fantastic. I cannot wait till I can actually go in person. I think it will be even better then. I participated in the governing board candidate nomination interviews. We had 2 nights of those. I couldn't make the first night, but did make the second night. I think we had some really great candidates, and I would just like to add that we do not get to choose the candidates. However, we are able to make a recommendation to the superintendent, Steve Watson. And part of our conversation around the candidates did involve diversity, diverse representation, not only in race or ethnicity, but also in areas of our district, meaning physical location in our district and age and things like that. We are doing our best to practice what we preach when it comes to that as well. Also, a study session on budget, performance pay, and the preschool program, which was very informative. I think that was one of the best study sessions we've had. So I really appreciate all the presentations. They were excellent. Conversation was very productive as well. From the ASBA standpoint, I attended a webinar on creating your equity lens. Thought was fantastic. They had some great practices that are already in use by other districts across the country for accountability. And so I would to see potentially, once we see what those goals and the accountability that Megan and Brian are going to put together, see us as a board, also we could get our own kind of rubrics to look at accountability standpoint. In addition to that, today I attended my first meeting of the ASBA Alliance membership, and that again was informative and just so interesting to hear how other districts are dealing with their disparities as well. And my final thing this evening, I would like to offer my condolences for the loss of Peter Kovatz and David Schwake. They are huge. The loss is a huge blow to our LASD family. Mr. Kovatz's positivity and zest for life will be forever imprinted on us as a district. And Mr. Schwake's parallel selfless example as a servant leader and champion to the campaign to end hunger is an inspiration to us and has been an inspiration to me personally for the last 13 years I knew him. They are both greatly loved. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Melissa, would you like to go next?
Yes. So I, since our last board meeting, was able to go get my first COVID shot, which I said earlier. I was able to attend 2 of the ASBA webinars. I did the one on ESSER2 funds and also the Creating an Equity Lens, like Kim had participated in. The ESSER2 was very informative because I really don't understand any of that stuff. So it was nice to know that. And I know I could go to Wendy and she would explain it to me, but it was nice to start there with them so that I can have a list of questions that I can then go to Wendy about and say, oh, they said we can spend all these funds on these things. Is this what we're doing? So I can better understand. It made me feel better about it. And the equity lens, I do think that there are some resources and things available to us. So we don't need to recreate the wheel on everything. So we should definitely take advantage of that stuff that's available to us. I participated in both nights of the candidate interviews. I was super excited to see that we had so many people interested in potentially being a board member. I mean, 11 applications is crazy high since we have never had that many people before. So it was pretty nice for that. I also attended the study session that Kim had mentioned. I thought it was a good discussion as well. It definitely got us talking about things we need to talk about, things that we can't put off anymore and we need to start making some decisions about. And with the information we were given, I feel better in a place to start making those decisions. I think our board is in a better place to make some hard decisions possibly in the future. I've had multiple conversations with our superintendent. I signed up for the first time ever for the actual chat with Jody time because I just talk to her whenever and she's really available to me because I'm just really not good at that. And I have questions and I think, oh, I'd like to have these answered. And I text her saying, please call me whenever. And she always makes time like right away. So she's super great. But I figured I'd start using those actual chat times and try to save my questions for then in the future to not make it so difficult on her. And then obviously there's been many conversations and emails that we've had about opening that we've been dealing with. And so being so involved in the community prior to being on the board, so many people in the staff know my personal email. So I get lots of emails to my personal email for board stuff. And I have to be like, hey, can you send that to the whole board and not just my personal email? But that it was good to see some perspective on things. I was able to get some information from parents about how they interpreted certain things on the survey. Like I know you had mentioned the question, 14% of our people said other, what did that mean? Well, I've had parents tell me what that meant for them as far as, you know, waiting till teachers have vaccines, opening when there's 1 yellow versus 2 yellows or 3 yellows. So that was some things that I had gotten feedback on from people just kind of talking to me about it. And I would say that all of us were rocked by the 2 losses we had back to back in our district. I did not know Pete Kovatz very well, but what I do know is that his smile lit up the room when he walked in, and you couldn't help but feel that positive energy and feel better by being around him whenever he was around any of us. And to hear that he was gone was really hard to have that happen. And then to be followed up by Dave Schwake, who doesn't know David Schwake and how he feeds all our children and how many of our kids who are in honor society and various volunteering groups through the schools and have gotten to work with him and know him. So that was a loss that all of our staff felt and all our students felt. And it was very emotional couple of weeks for me and for our staff, and my heart just hurts for all of them. And I hope that we can just come together and kind of build each other up as we move forward.
Thank you, Melissa. Jeremy.
Thank you. I want to keep it very brief. I kind of echo what has just been said by Melissa and Kim. I've attended seminars and a lot of different things. I didn't really know Pete or Dave, but I did spend some time looking into what they did, and they truly they are an inspiration still to me. I'm very concerned about my definition of equity is helping these kids whose scores are down. And I believe that parental involvement is a key to to improving their scores and their chances for success in life. And Jody is very encouraging, and I'm discussing it with a lot of people. We're going to be discussing it. A paradigm that might end up being potentially a new track that would be a little bit of a deal between parents and the school, where they would get another type of really kind of an exclusive educational experience, like would be in a private school or whatever, in exchange for at home agreeing to really take seriously. And I believe that a lot of the disadvantaged families that I've worked with a lot in various ways, I believe a lot of them are going to embrace it very quickly. So I'm kind of excited about it, and we'll see what happens. But there's an enormous opportunity here. That I mean, statistically, all the data seems to show that yes, it could be a total game changer, and work within the severe economic limitations that may be coming shortly. So that's all I got to say. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jeremy. I will try to keep the report brief. I know that we tend to all sort of attend the same things and enjoy the same topics and things like that. So I won't belabor those points. I think we have attended many of the same things. One thing I do want to call out is the Speak Up, Stand Up, Save a Life virtual conference. Number one, that was one of the best virtual conferences I've ever been to. Just the way that it was run and the enthusiasm and the way they put it together was phenomenal. I have worked from home for a very long time, so I've been in a virtual world for a lot longer than just this, and I've seen different people sort of fumble through things, and that group, if you're not familiar with them, especially if you have middle schoolers, but all children certainly would benefit from that. I encourage you to look them up. I know some of our schools have been involved with that organization and will be once we can all be back together. Phenomenal content, just delivered in a way that is extremely impactful, especially for what we are currently going through and what our kids will be going through as they reemerge from the mental and emotional difficulties we've had through the pandemic. Also, one other thing that I would mention, many of us, the district keeps us up to date, but also on various advocacy opportunities. Our state legislature meets on a weekly basis, their education committees. You can tune in and listen to them. Sometimes they are difficult to sit through. They are hours and hours, sometimes similar to our meetings, I understand. But there are a lot of things happening in education right now, or potentially not happening in education right now. So I encourage you to log on and listen to what's happening at our state and local level for education. It's important, it's impactful, and it would help you be a good advocate for your child who currently attends public schools. I will also just echo the sentiments in our governing board candidates. We interviewed them over a series of 2 nights. There are more than 12 or 13 candidates, I think, in all, and very impressed with the just level of preparedness and professionalism. Everyone was very interested. Everyone had a very different perspective on why they were coming to the table, but just the fact that people put their hat in the ring was impressive. So I appreciate all of that. I mean, I wish all of them the best of luck. They will be doing their interviews with Superintendent Watson's office over the next couple of weeks. And as a board and as a district, we are hopeful that we will have another board member rejoin us for our March meeting, if all goes well. And last, I want to kind of close out. I know we have talked about some really severe losses this evening that our district has faced. And I want to say I'm grateful to our district staff that has done everything they possibly can to keep us going. And when I say us, I mean the board, I mean the staff, I mean the students and the parents. They have worked tirelessly. We might have been in virtual learning, but whether they were virtually tuning in from their homes at the beginning or and they've been in the office for months, they have worked to get our kids where they need to be and back to school every day. All the time. So thank you. I am immensely grateful for all of the work and probably sleepless nights that you have endured over the last several months. I am also grateful to parents who have been patient through distance learning, who, whether you are fearful to go back to school or whether you're excited to go back to school, that you have sat with your child, you have worked with them, you have done the hard work of partnering with this district and helping us educate them. That will not be forgotten. We know that it's difficult, and many of us are doing it every day with our own children, and we understand, and we're grateful to all that you've done to partner with us. I'm especially grateful to our teachers and our staff. You have worked so hard to reach every single student, no matter what learning modality they've been in, if they've been in distance learning, if they've been in our safe place on site, if they have been 5-day in person for the brief time we were able to do that in the fall. No matter what, you have reached out, you have worked hard every day to make a difference. And it has not gone unnoticed by me and many other parents. Every email, and there have been dozens and dozens and dozens over the last couple of weeks and months that we have received. And no matter the sentiment about whether kids are in school or not in school, one thing that is collective amongst all of them is the gratefulness and the love for their teachers. Many times people even say, oh, I want to shout out to my second graders teachers. You know, she might be struggling emotionally at home, or she's doing really great in distance learning and it's because of her teacher or whatever. They always mention the teacher by name, and everyone is so grateful to everything that you've done. And I will close with this, not only for our board reports here, but also kind of the meeting in general. And we know that this meeting was difficult. It was difficult for us. It was probably difficult for some parents to watch and to wait for kind of news of what was going to happen for their family. And whether you are happy about the decisions that were made tonight, or whether you are disappointed, or whether you fall somewhere in between, I ask that you understand this is going to be a transition for all of us. For every single person, whether it is a teacher or a staff member, it is a student, it is a family member, we are all transitioning back to something that we haven't done in a very long time. So be kind to each other and give a little bit of grace as we do this. We are all working together, and you know, I think our LESD light will shine through this if we can all just come back together and remember that this community is amazingly supportive, and it has some really awesome people that are working 100 hours a day to make this, you know, keep the wheels on the bus, so to speak, which is a great analogy for right now. So I applaud everyone. Thank you very much for all of your hard work. I will close out by also thanking our administrators for submitting their reports, just to finish out the agenda, putting all of that information together. I know it is difficult when everyone is doing different things and in different modalities, but we appreciate the reports. And if anyone does have questions on that, they can submit that either to Jody or to the specific people that wrote those reports. And with that, I will bring this meeting to a close. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I motion to adjourn.
Great. I will second. We will go individually again one more time just through our votes. Kim, your vote?
Kimberly Moran, yay.
Melissa?
Melissa Zeidema, yay.
And Jeremy. Oh, Jeremy, you're on mute. I'm sorry.
Sorry, point of order is the agenda says after our reports, there are staff reports. Has that been changed?
That was what I just mentioned. It's the reports from the administrators. It's just information only. So you review those online, and unless there is any questions, there's no actual presentation there. It's information only.
Okay, sorry then. So I'm an aye vote, a yay vote.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you very much.
Danielle Clymer, I am yay as well. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. We'll see you next month.
Thank you, board members. That was a tough night. You guys did great.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good
guys.
night.
Appreciate it, Gina.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Good night. Hey, Gina.